Chapter 301. Everyone in the mountain villa is talented. Inside the house, Feng Linger and Shining looked at each other's beautiful faces with some displeasure. They were waiting for someone. Waiting for the person coming back from fishing. As veterans in the fishing industry, they knew too well how challenging fishing could be and had speculated when the two would cheat. But it had been a while since nightfall, and these two new fishermen still hadn't returned. Did they really need to be so patient? If it were Shining, she would have thrown a punch at mealtime and brought home the fish. Could these two living people have been eaten by the fish? Feng Linger looked outside and wondered. Just as they were considering whether to go out and search for them, the door opened. Duan Yun and Murong brothers, the fishermen, returned with two big fish. Shining saw the two scantily clad women with their pale thighs exposed behind them and asked in confusion, "Are these the fish you guys caught?" Duan Yun nodded. "Indeed they are." "You're kidding me." Feng Linger approached Shining and analyzed, "Did these guys go to Wangchun City?" Shining instantly understood what she meant. The brothel in Wangchun City was known for its exceptional service, and as long as you paid enough silver, you could take a woman home for the holidays. And the sisters in front of them with slightly raised hair and a pitiful appearance indeed had a bit of that demeanor. Suddenly, the two women spoke in unison, "I want to be a hero." At this, Feng Linger and Shining both jumped in fright and shivered. They must have been bewitched by the old demon Duan's demon seed. The two women no longer suspected that they went to solicit prostitutes, as ordinary brothel women wouldn't be transformed like this by Duan Yun. Besides, Duan Yun looked like he values chastity and innocence. Even if he did solicit, he must have been led astray by the filthy Murong brother. They inquired about the situation. Murong brother couldn't help but recount how he caught a mermaid. And because of his deep feelings, he dived into the water to fight a great battle with assassins, and subsequently killed two assassins with great valor. In this story, he was undoubtedly passionate, brave, and mighty. However, he quickly realized that Feng Linger and Shining were admiring Duan Yun, not him. "Hey, I should get at least 70% of the credit, right?" Murong brother said. He was pursuing, fighting, and killing, while old demon Duan was just busy holding the beauty and barely exerting any effort, as validated by the husbands of these two pretty young women. 70% my foot. If Duan Yun hadn't realized something was off with these two women and cleverly decided to wait and see, "You'd be lucky to be alive," Feng Linger analyzed. Shining nodded. "If these two women weren't restrained, with your clueless look around women, you would have been killed earlier." Murong brother's mouth hung open as he gasped in shock, at a loss for words. Although they hadn't caught any fish, only scooped up two women, they still needed to eat. The fish left unfinished from before was made into cured fish, now cooked with rice, and after being taken off the stove, sprinkled with fermented black beans, it was incredibly delicious. The four of them ate under the light, and because Murong brother was sulking, he took a piece of fish and went to eat by himself, fulfilling the wishes of Feng Linger and Shining. With one less plain face at the table, their appetites greatly improved. In Duan Yun's eyes, Murong brother actually looked quite decent, at least above average. Especially after he had been whitened, he even looked somewhat handsome. Unfortunately, in the eyes of Feng Linger and Shining, Murong looked just somewhat paler and not extraordinary, particularly as men who are too pale lack masculinity. Unlike Duan Yun, everything about him was just right. It can only be said that men and women see Murong brother quite differently, which is also the reason why Murong brother, swaying his hips, always attracts a lot of men following him. As the four were enjoying their meal, the two assassin women outside suddenly spoke in unison again. "I want to be a hero." This time, their voices sounded even more ferocious. Honestly, in this rundown mountain villa near the graveyard, having two women suddenly blurt out something like that always brought a sense of horror. Murong was genuinely concerned upon seeing the two assassin sisters wearing scant clothing outside. He couldn't help but express concern. "It's so cold outside, and they haven't eaten anything. Could they be hungry and catch cold?" Feng Linger couldn't help but retort, "They are after your life, and yet you still care so much about them." Murong had a look of endless sorrow and said, "They might have been forced to do it, Those two men with them were no good. Now that their men are dead, maybe things will get better. He only spoke a simple phrase, stating a fact, yet his tones were completely different. When talking about the women, his tone was gentle and caring. But when he referred to the men associated with the sisters, his tone was fierce, grinding his teeth in anger. Feng Linger and Xining couldn't help but display a look of disdain. This man's double standards towards men and women were intolerable, even for women. Feng Linger said, "Since they are so kind, why don't you bring them inside? Don't let them freeze out there." Morong immediately stood up and said, "That's exactly what I was thinking. It's not good for such beautiful ladies to freeze outside." Saying so, he was ready to leave his meal and bring the sisters back inside. But just as he extended his hand, he heard two extremely loud slaps. Morong stood there, his face marked with two bright red handprints, looking utterly confused. At that moment, the two women, their eyes wide, said in unison, "I want to be a hero." Morong, with his slapped red face and on the verge of tears, questioned Duan Yun. "Did you do this on purpose?" Duan Yun was surprised too and asked, "Why did you slap him?" "He's too ugly. The hero must not be insulted." The two sisters replied one after the other. Morong gasped and, like being struck by an arrow, fell to the ground, unwilling to move again. Then, Xining asked, "What are you planning to do with these two?" Duan Yun pondered, "I originally wanted them to lead the way, but that seems unlikely now. Yes, their sudden proclamation of wanting to be a hero could probably blow their cover even before reaching Netherworld Villa." "You're seriously planning to go to Netherworld Villa?" Feng Linger exclaimed. "Of course. Why else would we keep these assassins around for New Year?" Duan Yun analyzed. "It's a pity that Netherworld Villa isn't easy to enter." From these two female assassins, he had learned about the methods to enter Netherworld Villa, yet it was no easy task. Their location, Netherworld Villa, was situated in a misty valley, and even for assassins like them, entry was not simple. Each time they entered the villa, they had to lie inside a coffin that isolated all senses, which would float downstream into the valley until someone opened the coffin, allowing them to reach the domain of Netherworld Villa. Exiting the valley was similar. In the history of the existence of Netherworld Villa, there had indeed been assassins who secretly opened their coffins, none of whom survived. This was also the reason why Netherworld Villa was so mysterious and hard to locate. If they were going to visit Netherworld Villa, they might also need to enter a coffin, but before they could do that, they would likely be exposed. After all, these four assassins were considered significant figures within the villa, and the people arranging the coffins certainly knew them. At this moment, Morong suddenly perked up and ran out. Shortly after, he returned, holding two fresh human faces in his hands. The faces of those two brother assassins. Morong declared, "We could use these to make human skin masks and sneak right in." Duan Yun, observing the thinly sliced faces in his hand, couldn't help but comment, "I didn't expect your skills at slicing faces to be quite impressive." "That is natural. Who else could be such a unique talent with the blade?" Morong stated confidently. Duan Yun wondered, "But who could make human skin masks?" Feng Linger nodded and said, "I can." Duan Yun looked at her with mild surprise. "Well, aren't the people of our Yuzhu Villa talented?" Chapter 302. Witness Young Hero's Righteous Strike. In the quiet kitchen, Duan Yun and his group watched Feng Linger make a human skin mask. She first poured a little oil on the table, spread out the fresh skin on the oil, kneading it, then picked up a small stick resembling a rolling pin and gently rolled it over the back of the human face. Honestly speaking, the three of them, including Duan Yun, felt a bit hungry watching this scene. If it weren't for the face being genuinely horrific, under the swaying oil lamp light, they almost thought Feng Linger was roasting pig skin. After kneading the human face for a while, Feng Linger gently exhaled. Xining couldn't help but ask, "Is it done?" "Of course not." Feng Linger continued, taking some fine powder from her package and sprinkling it over the back of the face. Now, it looked even more like it, completely covered in flour. Afterward, the two faces were hung inside the house. Feng Linger said, Just wait for them to dry. It's hard to say, but the two faces hanging there, swaying with the wind, seemed almost lifelike, as if expressing emotions. It really looked the part. Despite the seemingly unreliable process, the result turned out to be reliable. Shining couldn't help asking, "Where did you learn this method?" Feng Linger said, "I have an aunt called Qin Shentong." Shining suddenly realized and said, "The 60-year-old still called Shentong?" Feng Linger nodded. Apart from being not good at martial arts, she likes to have fun. She found out how to make these human skin masks because she thought it was fun. Morong chimed in, "Right, a few years ago, the market's top-quality human skin masks. 7 out of them came from the Thousand Faces Immortal sect, and the other 3 from Qin Shentong. But we haven't heard any news later." Feng Linger nodded. "That's because my aunt didn't want to play anymore, and some of the best masks were even made from pig skin." Shining marveled at, "Who would have thought? The method to make human skin masks is so simple and unadorned." Feng Linger smiled. "This method was inspired by her frying pig skin." Morong asked, "Should we try making some too?" "Let's do it," Duan Yun echoed. And thus, next to the drying human faces, they really started frying pig skin, treating it as a late-night snack. At this moment, Feng Linger couldn't help but ask, "You have your masks, but what about ours?" Morong was confused. "Ours? You wouldn't leave us here alone, would you? Last time we acted heroically, and we want to go again," Feng Linger replied. "Yes, it's been a long time since I fought. I want to go too," Shining added. Seeing that Duan Yun and Morong did not immediately agree, she couldn't help but say, "Why? Do you think we would be a burden?" Morong, fearing being hit, quickly said, "I wouldn't underestimate anyone, let alone any beautiful girls. But their human skin masks are indeed a problem. We can't just cut off their faces, right?" Morong is undeniably gentle. He could manage to cut a dead person's face, and with reluctance, he might manage to cut the face of a living man he disliked, but to cut the face of a living beauty, that he could never do. His principle was, unless absolutely necessary, the knife should not be pointed at a beautiful girl. That's also why the 2 male assassins ended up dead with their skins still hanging in the room. "I want to be a hero. I want to be a hero." At this moment, 2 female assassins who hadn't eaten shouted loudly, giving off a military training ground vibe. Shining asked, "What about them?" Duan Yun speculated, "It must be because of my repeated electrocutions. These 2 have a more persistent and stable heroic spirit." The bad guys he previously imbued with heroic spirit either died very quickly or were extremely impulsive and unstable, quickly going mad in their attempt to act heroically and sacrifice themselves. But these 2 women now behaved quite obediently and did not break free from control. Duan Yun approached and asked, "As a hero, what do you wish to do?" "Act for heaven. Kill the evil. Kill, kill, kill." Seeing these 2 delicate girls say such things in unison, it even seemed somewhat heroic for a moment. "Like killing whom?" Duan Yun probed. "We want to kill the Red House Mad Woman," the female assassins answered. Duan Yun, slightly surprised, asked, "Why?" "The young hero Duan despises them, and being a hero means we must kill. Anyone disliked by young hero Duan is a bad person and must be killed. Anyone wishing ill towards young hero Duan is an evil person and deserves death. Young hero Duan embodies heroic justice." "Damn it," Morong couldn't help but comment. This seemed like the same kind of possession suffered by the followers of the demon sect. Duan Yun was quite satisfied with their performance and said, "All right then, go ahead. Remember to eat well." "Yes, we'll heed the edict of the embodiment of justice. Young hero Duan." "Yes, we'll heed the edict of the embodiment of justice. Young hero Duan." Listening to the words of the 2 female assassins, Duan Yun felt a bit embarrassed in the moment. The tone and phrases, those familiar know it's addressed to young hero Duan, but those unfamiliar might think they were addressing the sect hierarch of the demon sect. The 2 women took the command and entered the kitchen to gorge on leftovers. When they had nearly eaten their fill, they stared straight ahead and respectfully bowed to Duan Yun, then left, obviously off to act heroically. Can this even work? Morong said enviously. They're so obedient, going to act heroically when asked. What if he asked them to be wives? Would they agree willingly too? Chapter 303. Green Blade Demon suddenly cast an envious look at old Demon Duan. Some people are just naturally surrounded by women, that's why they waste them. To use such beautiful women for chivalry instead of treasuring them as wives, it's a waste that invites divine punishment. With the two female assassins off being chivalrous, Xining and Fenglinger had no other options. Without appropriate human skin masks, they wouldn't be able to enter Ghost Manor. Morong got really excited just looking at those two human skin masks all night. Unable to help herself, Xining asked, "What are you so happy about?" Morong burst into laughter and said, "Once we put these masks on our faces, I'll be as handsome as old Demon Duan. Indeed, as long as the handsome Duan Yun is brought to the same level, old Demon Duan would have no advantage over him." Duan Yun and the others just felt that this guy was sick in the head and went to sleep, leaving Morong lying in the kitchen keeping an eye on the human skin masks as if afraid that mice might snatch them away. The next day, the human skin masks were ready, giving off a cool and delicate touch when held in hand. Honestly, it felt a bit perverse and weird. You could even distinctly sense the texture of their skin. What remained was to put on the human skin masks. Fenglinger, clever and nimble-fingered, evenly applied a layer of rice paste mixed with lard on the masks. The rest was to affix the human skin masks in place. Duan Yun didn't need to worry, as Fenglinger personally helped him apply it, and Xining assisted with adjustments. This left and right assistance to apply a facial mask really had a bit of the feeling of wives attending to their husband. The two women finished and then stopped. Morong asked puzzledly, "What about me?" Fenglinger looked at him with disdain and said, "There's a mirror over there. Can't you stick it on yourself?" Morong replied, "I'm a bit clumsy with my hands. Afraid I won't do it well. You, a saber wielder, can't even stick it on properly. Would that not make you useless?" Being ridiculed by his own sister in such manner, Morong's face fell as he insisted, "I don't care. I want someone to help me stick it on today. Who will help me?" Upon hearing this, both Fenglinger and Xining moved away with a look of disgust on their faces. This is just like when a beauty whimsically acts spoiled. It's a pleasure for men, but if an ugly or fat woman does the same before you, it's a disaster. Clearly, Morong belonged to the latter category. Seeing that no one was willing to help him, he felt a bit unable to step down. So he turned to Duan Yun for help with a pleading look. Honestly, Duan Yun found Morong relatively bearable to look at, but even he was struggling to tolerate his whimsy now. So he waved his hand and said, "Big White, you help him." Big White sighed and walked over somewhat reluctantly. Since starting martial arts training, Big White's paws might seem bulky but had become quite nimble. Though still not on par with those martial arts experts, he was no different from the average person. One could only say that within Yuzhu Villa, aside from the donkeys and horses that were of little use, the animals were all talented. Big White picked up the human skin mask and stuck it onto Morong's face. Morong, looking at its thick bare paws, cautioned, "Big White, be careful. Don't let your claws poke me." Before he could finish his sentence, because his head moved, Big White slapped him, and Morong instantly calmed down. After a while, Big White finally had the mask attached properly. Thus, Yuzhu Villa saw the emergence of two male assassins who looked nearly identical. Morong looked at himself in the mirror, glanced at Duan Yun, and so thrilled that he somersaulted several times while laughing. "I finally look like old Demon Duan." Duan Yun and company, even the panda Dabai, all gave him a look of disdain. Just past noon, after a hearty meal, Duan Yun and Morong were ready to set off. Fenglinger, with a look of yearning, tugged at Duan Yun's sleeve. "You must take me with you next time, remember?" Duan Yun spread his hands. "It's just that the circumstances don't allow it this time. The more the merrier for matters of chivalry." Afterward, Duan Yun and Morong set out on horses and donkeys. Regarding being put back to use, both Little Gray and the horse seemed rather happy, continuously braying and neighing. The area of Ghost Manor near Yuanling was said to be often shrouded in fog, adding to its air of mystery, and was also where the most rumors of zombies were frequent. Duan Yun last heard about Yuanling when he encountered the corpse chaser Huang Shi, who had told him a story about Mr. Run, the corpse king. Now they were heading to such a mystically reputed place. The thrill of adventure came to them once again. One could say that men naturally have the genes for adventure, relishing the excitement. Not to mention that those who were presently on the road were young hero Duan and Murong, brimming with heroic spirit. The idea of doing acts of chivalry seemed ever so exhilarating. While on their way, Duan Yun and Murong, as usual, stopped at a tea house to drink tea and rest. This time, there happened to be a bona fide storyteller in the tea house. The storyteller wasn't talking about old demon Duan's stories, for even if he was good at making stories, he was just one person, and in martial world, fresh tales were unfolding every day and night. Yes, you heard that right. Qingzhou has an imbalance of genders. In Qingzhou, particularly around Liangtai County and Tianlin Mountain, there are so many women that it's driving people mad. They say that out of 10 people, at least 7 or 8 are women, the storyteller narrated. At this, the old bachelors present got excited and said, "Doesn't that mean men are in high demand?" Chapter 304. It's more than popular. I always feel that if this continues, men are going to become extinct, the storyteller said, making a sensational statement. What's happening? Who's causing trouble again, killing men indiscriminately? Someone asked. Historically, the red building fairies, in their insatiable greed and indiscriminate hunger, would descend in swarms like locusts, draining a city's men to only a third of their original number. One could say that it was the darkest period for the men of this world. Afterwards, the Red House must have faced some setbacks and reached certain agreements with the major powers, which reigned in their savagery. They no longer roamed in packs to commit their crimes. However, it seems that a similar problem has arisen now. This time it's not that, but rather that many men in these regions have willingly degraded themselves and transformed into women, the storyteller replied. What? Have you heard of the Jade Maiden Sword sect? The storyteller asked. Yes, the sect founded by old demon Duan. Could it be that? That's right. Last time, old demon Duan and the Jade Maiden Sword sect made an enemy of the White Sox sect in Yu State. Led by old demon Duan, the Jade Maiden Sword sect won a complete victory. Logically, being a new power, the Jade Maiden Sword sect should have been content with gaining an advantage over a profound and established power like the White Sock Divine sect. They should have been low-key after that. But the Jade Maiden Sword sect is truly a sect that worships old demon Duan. Just like old demon Duan himself, they're petty. The White Sox sect hadn't even sought trouble with them and old demon Duan yet. But they went to Qingzhou to pick a fight with the White Sox sect. But the White Sox sect is not to be trifled with. They have been entrenched in Qingzhou for many years. Could they let the Jade Maiden Sword sect be so cocky? Someone asked. This is all because the stubborn people of Qingzhou are never satisfied. The White Sox sect has been in Qingzhou for more than a year or two. Is it so bad to kill some parents and children? Is it so wrong to demand you till the land well and submit your dues? Just because of these righteous acts, they rebel. They willingly degrade themselves and join the Jade Maiden Sword sect. They don't want to be good farmers. Instead, they become female sword cultivators and fight to the death with the White Sox sect. I'm telling you, if Qingzhou is full of such troublemakers, how many men can there be left? Unable to help himself, the storyteller voiced his sarcastic comments loudly. At this moment, let alone Duan Yun, the Murong brothers couldn't help but chime in. The White Sox sect oppresses the people of Qingzhou, and it's wrong for them to resist? That's right, they just felt the storyteller was completely biased. The storyteller retorted, Who are you to stir up trouble? With old demon Duan leading the Jade Maiden Sword sect, do you not see how many men will become extinct and how many will die? In fact, the Murong brothers were right. This storyteller was indeed biased. He hadn't taken bribes from the White Sox sect, but ever since the great hero storyteller faction came into play, they, the bloodthirsty storytellers, felt threatened. In the past, Most bloodthirsty storytellers wouldn't speak so blatantly biased. Just telling bizarre tales about old Demon Duan was enough. But ever since the appearance of the great hero storyteller, they had agreed among themselves in secret. Whatever is supported by old Demon Duan, they must oppose. Whatever old Demon Duan opposes, they must support. They wanted to discredit old Demon Duan and any related powers, making them public enemies in the martial world. Otherwise, the bloodthirsty storytellers couldn't comfortably unify the storytelling circles. The Murong brothers responded, "What about the White Sox sect's killing spree in Qingzhou? You didn't see that? What, you allow the White Sox sect to murder and set fires but not let others seek revenge? I bet if your mother or wife were killed, you'd only shut up and not emit a single fart." The storyteller slammed his gavel and angrily said, "We aren't discussing whether those troublemakers should seek revenge or not. Do you think becoming fallen is a good thing?" The Murong brothers also slammed the table and said, "As long as it's not by coercion, what's wrong with others choosing to become stronger by becoming fallen, choosing to take revenge? Are the lawful acts of taking lives for lives, avenging blood debts no longer right?" The storyteller couldn't help but exclaim furiously, "Deceitful words! To become fallen is the shame of men, deserving to be despised. How many benefits have you received from old Demon Duan?" The Murong brothers raised their eyebrows and said, "With the White Sox sect's cruel methods and countless perverts within, just how many benefits have you received from the White Sox sect to defend them like their father?" Infuriated, the storyteller wrapped a red silk kerchief around his head, all the while saying, "If I don't properly debate with you today, I am not the bloodthirsty storyteller." Before he could finish speaking, a bang resounded. His head was already smashed into the table. In the blink of an eye, the Murong brothers appeared on the stage, pressing down furiously on his head. "If I can't persuade you today, I am not Lu Qingyu, the leader of the Huangshan Six Swords." With a tug, they pulled the storyteller's face out from the table. The bloodthirsty storyteller's face was covered in blood, his features twisted from the impact. He tried to speak, but then two snaps were heard. His feet had been kicked and broken. While he attempted to shriek, his hands were twisted and broken. He tried to speak again, but the Murong brothers smashed his front teeth with a punch and stuffed the gavel into his mouth, causing him to whimper, unable to articulate a word, tears streaming down. This form of brute force, denying any chance for debate, was truly unbearable. So crude, with not a hint of skill. With this, the audience below was also frightened and wanted to leave. At that moment, the Murong brothers slammed the table and loudly declared, "I am Lu Qingyu, the sword leader of the Huangshan Six Swords. I have made my stance clear today. Anyone who aids the White Sox sect is an enemy of the Huangshan Sword sect. Let's see who the Huangshan Golden Sword will spare." With that, they drew a golden sword from their hand, which sent a shiver through the crowd. Duan Yun watched his own golden sword being held by the Murong brother, thinking to himself, "What a move by the young hero Murong, knowing well about my grudge with the Huangshan Six Swords, to use such a righteous tactic." Chapter 305. A bizarre night, whose toad is wearing a belly band. Overcast skies, ancient trees whispered somberly. Beside the road, green ponds were scattered with floating duckweed, yellow and green, accompanied by a mist rising from the water surface, a vision of deep desolation. It must be said that even without the rumors of zombies and the mystery of the corpse carriers, the area would still convey feelings of mystery and terror. When Duan Yun and the Murong brothers reached this place, even their mounts, Little Gray and the horses, slowed their pace uneasily. This boundary, not even to mention things like zombies, simply the poisonous insects, snakes, and the erratic miasma, would be unbearable for the average person. Even some of the martial world people, should they rashly venture here, would likely perish along the way. Just on the path they had passed, they had seen many bones of horses and people, presumably travelers like themselves who had met with misfortune. Some places seemed to naturally be shrouded in mystery. As dusk approached, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers began to look for a place to stay. The fog and miasma here at night were too thick. One careless step and you could become lost, making it impossible to travel. But there was really no village ahead and no shop behind. Apart from the occasional skeletons that startled their mounts and the poisonous creatures they encountered on the path, there was nothing. Not even a dilapidated hut to shelter from the wind and rain. By now, the sky had completely darkened. Little Gray and the horses moved even slower, every rustle in the bushes startling them. No wonder they call it Netherworld Mountain Villa. Only ghosts would visit such a hellish place. The Morong brothers grumbled. Just then, a gust of wind shook the hanging vines in the trees, making them sway like poisonous snakes, or like the ghostly claws bearing their fangs. The Morong brothers shrank their necks, already regretting their earlier joke. Joking around in such a haunted area was as good as looking for trouble. Suddenly, the Morong brothers felt Little Gray sink beneath them. They quickly looked down and asked, "Little Gray, what's wrong?" At that moment, they saw that all four of Little Gray's stubby legs were sinking into the mud, with its body continuing to sink further. The Morong brothers quickly dismounted, channeled their true chi, picked up Little Gray in their arms, and managed to pull it out. "This wet mud swallows people whole," the Morong brothers exclaimed. Without their inborn strength to pull the donkey out, both mount and rider would have been lost. Duan Yun patted the horses behind, signaling it to keep moving. This kind of marshy mud could swallow an ordinary person, but it was of no consequence to masters like them. Even if the Morong brothers and their mounts were both stuck, Duan Yun could use the Biming divine skill to extract them. "No one understands the power of suction better than I do." The duo arrived at a hillside. Suddenly, the Morong brothers' eyes lit up. "There's a fire!" Down below, in the distance, there indeed seemed to be a bonfire. Where there was fire, there were people. It was common for people of the martial world to camp out in the wilderness and gather around campfires. Duan Yun remembered the first time he camped in the wilderness. The area was as bustling as a marketplace, no doubt related to the fire he had made. After 2 days without seeing anyone, it would be good to at least ask for directions. Too bad Duan Yun's Biming divine skill had its limitations, only allowing him to merge minds and tremble together with another person. And even then, the revelations were limited. Before setting out, he had learned that Netherworld Mountain Villa was in the Yuanling area, in a place called Evil Wind Valley, and thought it would be easy to locate, but it turned out to be quite a hassle. So, one whipped their horse and the other spurred their donkey, as they headed towards the bonfire. Upon reaching it, both Duan Yun and the Morong brothers were taken aback. Because it wasn't a fire left by travelers camping, it was a shrine. The fire was real but not burning wood, it was a person. A person with their limbs removed, being burned at the stake, facing a 6-armed deity statue. The statue's features were blurred, with no discernible face, looking like an unfinished stone embryo. Yet the folds of its robe were intricately carved. Duan Yun could even picture the quivering flesh as if the statue would move. In the darkness, such a scene, with a person burning before such a deity, was unspeakably sinister and horrifying. The heavens and earth darkened, as if only this cluster of flames remained. "This person hasn't been thoroughly burnt. Whoever did this can't have gone far," Duan Yun analyzed. Morong brothers doubted. "You want to chase after them? It's not clear whether they are humans or ghosts." Indeed, such a sinister sight, along with the legends of Yuanling, made it difficult to discern truth from fiction. "Afraid of ghosts?" Duan Yun questioned. "Who's afraid?" "I, Morong, am never afraid," the Morong brothers replied. "That's right. If this person was a good person and met such a fate, even if he's become a ghost, I'll avenge him," Duan Yun declared firmly, standing in front of the burning corpse. The Morong brothers watched, as the light of the fire cast Duan Yun's face, so similar to their own, in a strange and somewhat terrifying light. This old devil could indeed be more frightening than a ghost at times. So the two heroes continued their pursuit. But the more they advanced, the more bizarre the journey became. If that corpse was burned by people as a sacrifice to the sinister deity, there should have been some traces left behind. Yet there were no footprints or any other signs on the path. Even for Duan Yun and the Murong brothers, achieving this would be difficult. Did this mean those who left had better qinggong, or maybe they were ghosts to begin with? Ghosts would often float in the air, ethereal, naturally leaving no trace on the ground. Chapter 306. At this moment, Murong brothers, with their sharp eyes, suddenly pointed to a branch and said, "There's something up there." They lightly leaped and took down a piece of torn fabric from above. The edge of the fabric was embroidered with half a plum blossom, looking very bright. Murong brothers said, "This is fabric from a woman's undergarment." Duan Yun looked at the piece of fabric barely bigger than a fingernail and exclaimed in surprise, "How can you even tell that?" Murong brothers nodded and said, "I can tell. There are few styles of women's undergarments on the market that I am not aware of. Just by seeing this piece of fabric, I can even imagine its entire design." While Duan Yun admired him, he also looked at him as one would look at a perverted voyeur. Who in their right mind would be so familiar with women's undergarments? But this also alerted Duan Yun, who analyzed, could it be that there are no footprints on the ground because they walked above? Indeed, by walking on trees, naturally there would be no traces on the ground, which might also lead to undergarments getting caught on the trees. Consequently, Duan Yun and Murong brothers suddenly carried the horse and donkey on their shoulders and leaped up. They too walked on the trees. It must be said, hopping lightly between the trees, although still obscured by mist, their view indeed broadened significantly. Suddenly, Duan Yun and Murong brothers, carrying the horse and donkey, stopped on a hillside and did not continue forward. Below the hillside was a wet mudflat. In the mud stood 4 people. 4 people in white clothing. From this angle, their silhouettes resembled women. They were positioned at 4 corners, standing motionless, carrying a white sedan chair. The reason Duan Yun and Murong brothers spotted them immediately was because they were very white, somewhat glaring against the dark mud. However, due to the distance and some thin mist, they were temporarily unsure if these were living people, even feeling they looked like paper effigies. The kind of paper effigies burnt for the dead. "This place is truly bizarre," Duan Yun muttered, wanting to discover the truth. But at this moment he once again stopped in his tracks. Due to an instant movement, the wet mudflat in front suddenly stirred. Yes, it moved. That patch of dark, wet mud stirred. In just a blink, it transformed into a living creature. Thereafter, Duan Yun and Murong brothers saw what seemed like a scene only from nightmares. Thousands of mouths emerged from the black mud, densely packed, making one's scalp tingle. Following that, a pink mist exuded from these mouths, forming a vast cloud of pink mist. Duan Yun and Murong brothers hurriedly covered the noses of their horse and donkey and retreated. This pink mist, engulfing the sky and seemingly beautiful with a peach blossom hue, they suspected it was probably toxic. In the next moment, the black mud wiggled, and those mouths, like a wave, surged forward. Meanwhile, the white sedan previously on the wet mud, now carried by the 4 white-clothed women, soared into the air. From this view, they appeared as though they were flying through the pink mist, and thus the white sedan and women both took on a pink hue. In an instant, that odd sedan and those mouths disappeared into the mist. Had they not seen it with their own eyes, Duan Yun and Murong brothers might have thought they were dreaming. Duan Yun couldn't help but ask, "What exactly are those mouths?" Murong brothers, always observant, said, "They are toads." Could it be that the miasma in this area of Yuanling is all emitted by these toads? Then isn't the one in the sedan a toad demon? While speaking, Duan Yun looked at the piece of undergarment in Murong brothers' hand and continued wondering, a toad demon wearing a pink undergarment? Having wandered martial world for so long, he naturally heard rumors of ghosts and monsters, and even inside Old Mother Mountain, he was once guided by the corpse of a child inside a lion's belly. But thinking of a toad demon wearing a pink undergarment, sitting in a sedan and leading thousands of toads in emitting clouds of mist, it was hard to believe. At that moment, Murong brothers gripped the fabric tighter and said, "I remembered someone." "Who?" Duan Yun asked curiously. "Have you heard of Qingcheng assassins?" Morong brothers looked in the direction the sedan departed and asked. Duan Yun shook his head. Morong brothers explained, in Qingcheng, there is a family named Ma, as in the Ma of Ma Zi, and under them are 108 hired assassins. It is said these assassins learned the cultivation techniques from Qingcheng Cave Heaven and are fearless in the face of death. They were active, both condemning some while saving many. Duan Yun frowned and asked, What do you mean? It is said that these 108 assassins from the Ma family can calmly face death for their beliefs. They are not only skilled in the mysterious cultivation techniques of Qingqing Mountain but also fear no death. When facing formidable foes, they would sacrifice their lives for lives, exchanging injury with death without even a frown. Aren't such people terrifying? Morong brothers asked. Terrifying? Duan Yun nodded. Such a daredevil squadron sounded even more formidable than Liang Mountain's 108 heroes because even among Liang Mountain heroes, not all could face death calmly. These kind of people, as easily as they meet their own death, can just as easily take others' lives. 200 years ago, there was an alien surname king who rallied many skilled individuals from martial world, aiming to establish a new martial world, foreseeing rivers of blood. Yet, the Ma family's assassins appeared, intending to make that alien surname king cease his actions. That was during his zenith, already a grandmaster of the military family, commanding an army of 100,000, surrounded by numerous experts. How could he possibly stop his revolution because of these strangers from Qingcheng Mountain? Chapter 307. As a result, the Ma family lost 68 of their devoted warriors, and the high-level experts by the side of the alien surname king were nearly annihilated as well, with even the king himself having both legs severed. At that time, the alien surname king had slashed down 5 of the Ma family's devoted warriors, yet those 5 had calmly used their own flesh and bones as weapons, restraining him and using their last strength to sever his legs. From then on, the alien surname king was completely defeated and never spoke of establishing a new martial world again. The story the Morong brothers told was of an event from a long time ago. According to them, the Ma family had also lost the majority of their devoted warriors, but the story of their cessation of fighting was indeed moving. They occasionally walked in the martial world and still carried significant influence. The person we just saw, could it be one of the Ma family's devoted warriors? Duan Yun wondered aloud. No, it might be the Ma family's family head. The Ma family is shrouded in mystery, with few in number, and not many in the martial world have seen the family head. However, it's widely known that the Ma family people have a strange habit. They are naturally immune to poisons, feeling no pleasure without them, and they are also adept at handling poisons, especially the pink poison toads. In the martial world, when it comes to using poisons, the most famous are the 5 Immortal sect and the Tang sect, but if we talk about controlling poisons, particularly in terms of the quantity one person can handle, no one surpasses the Ma family members. Overall, the Ma family is a very mysterious clan. With their capabilities, they could establish a power that should not be beneath the 5 Immortal sect, yet they choose to live secluded lives, seldom appearing in the martial world. When they do show up, they often engage in thankless tasks like peacemaking. Duan Yun mused, based on what you've said, I have a rather good impression of the Ma family people and their devoted warriors. Such warriors colored by idealism always evoke a sense of tragic heroism. The Morong brothers were also excited, gripping the scrap of cloth in their hands even tighter, and said with exhilaration, What I hold in my hand, could it possibly be Miss Ma's belly band, or maybe even the family heads? I never expected the family head of the Ma family to be a beautiful young lady. Duan Yun couldn't help but tease. You haven't even seen her face? And you're making assumptions based on a piece of bellyband cloth with an unknown origin? How can you deduce she's a beauty? I still suspect it might be a toad spirit wearing a bellyband. Morong brothers said with a love-struck expression. I don't care. You're just jealous. Jealous that the mysterious and beautiful family head or miss of the Ma family's bellyband cloth is in my hands. Seeing him like this, Duan Yun was momentarily speechless. At this moment, he frowned slightly and said, That statue we saw earlier, is it being worshipped by the Ma family? He really didn't believe that the kind of people who could raise devoted warriors like the Ma families would worship ghost gods. especially in such a sinister way. The Murong brothers were even less convinced. So they returned once more to the shrine. They looked at the burning corpse. The more they looked, the stranger it seemed. Because it had been burning for a long while, yet the corpse seemed just the same as when they had left. "What's going on?" Duan Yun asked, puzzled. The Murong brothers sniffed and asked, "What's that smell?" Duan Yun also took a sniff and felt something was amiss. Because the smell wasn't like that of a human corpse burning, but had a rotten fishy odor. With a scrape of his knife, one of the Murong brothers exclaimed, "Good heavens! Could this be a Jiaoren, merfolk?" Duan Yun followed the direction of the knife's cut and saw many small spines on the skeleton, resembling fish bones. There are legends in the martial world of Jiaoren living in great rivers and lakes, rarely caught by humans and considered an ill omen, requiring burning. And their flesh and skin could burn for months or even a year before it is completely incinerated. Looking at how long this corpse had been burning, coupled with the fine spines on the bones, this seemed to be increasingly credible. Duan Yun cut open its mouth with his knife and found that the teeth inside were sharp like steel needles, clearly not human. Both were pretty much certain now, this was one of the fabled Jiaoren. This was Duan Yun's first encounter with a Jiaoren. Seeing it being burned after having its limbs cut off, without knowing for how long, he just felt that this world was full of bizarre mysteries. No matter how many times he ventured out, there were always new things to learn. If he hadn't been accompanied by an old riverside expert like Murong this time, he might not have heard the story of the Ma family people and would have suspected encountering a ghost instead. Here he was, still holding that piece of fabric, intoxicatedly saying, "No telling how long this Jiaoren has been burning. I told you the beautiful young lady of the Ma family wouldn't do such a thing. You just know how to suspect people recklessly." Duan Yun. He really wanted to give this bloke a good shaking. Chapter 308. Murong, the young hero, also has a wisdom tooth of extraordinary wisdom. To find the Netherworld Villa, one must first locate the Netherworld Inn. Duan Yun and the Murong brothers indeed arrived at the river near the Evil Wind Valley, but they could not find the Netherworld Inn for quite a while. According to the information Duan Yun received, the Netherworld Villa should be by this great river. And outside the valley, there is only this one great river. Murong brother complained, "You shiver so much around beauties. I think you're just frivolously lascivious and not focused on serious matters." "Bullshit," Duan Yun cursed. "Then where is this Netherworld Inn?" Murong brother continued grumpily. "Indeed, the road to Netherworld Villa is challenging. All through last night, Duan Yun's breaking body sword energy was almost non-stop. He's fine because he has breaking body sword energy, but Murong brothers have been bitten by venomous insects and mosquitoes quite a bit. However, thanks to their laid-back experience at Yuju Villa, they developed incredible endurance, not even caring if rats ran over him or spiders spun webs on his face. Likewise, this time, despite the vicious mosquitoes, he still managed to sleep, letting the mosquitoes and poisonous insects bite to their satisfaction without waking him. However, upon waking up, he felt a bit uncomfortable and was quite irate. "Once we get in there, I, Murong Xiaoxia, must slaughter fiercely to avenge the bites I endured," Murong brother declared with a fierce expression. Yes, he blamed all the hardships of mosquito bites, which affected his skin's aesthetics and thus the lack of affection from beautiful girls, on Netherworld Villa. "I, Murong, do not have a beautiful confidant, all because of these darn assassins." Young hero Duan also felt an upsurge of anger. These evil believers, always hiding in such hard-to-find spots. Sometimes seeking them out is even harder than wiping them out. Probably the reason why this world doesn't have high-speed rail is that these assassins hinder technological progress. Perhaps some genius scientist has died by their hands. Really infuriating. Yes, in the minds of the two old demons, the Netherworld Villa assassins have added another layer of sin. It didn't take long before it started to get dark again. In Duan Yun and Murong brothers' senses, the night always seemed to come early here, bringing a creepy and dreary atmosphere. Looking at the water in the river, with fish swimming around from time to time, the two novice fishermen regretted not bringing fishing rods. Otherwise, they could have fished. At this dead end, Duan Yun was hesitant about whether to invent something like left foot stepping on right foot to ascend to the heavens light body skills, to observe the terrain from high above. After all, an eagle's eye view is great for reconnaissance. Unfortunately, he felt that even if he went up to the sky, it wouldn't be easy to find, as the fog in this area of Yuanling is too thick, easily obstructing the view. Just as the two demon heads were furious but couldn't find a way forward, suddenly two red lights floated over the river's surface. From this viewpoint, through the misty water vapor, those red lights looked like they were attached to a tremendous entity, appearing like the eyes of a giant ghastly creature, quite chilling in the night. Duan Yun and Murong brother didn't move at all. If they could really encounter a monster, then their luck would be incredibly good. Only when the red lights drew near did they realize those were several strings of red lanterns. And that dark colossal entity was actually a very large black boat. Although it was a boat floating on the water, it looked like a three-story inn. This boat was very deep in the water as it approached, spreading quite a water near the shore, forcing Duan Yun and Murong brother to retreat a distance, avoiding becoming drenched men. Only then could they clearly see the plaque illuminated by the red lanterns, sharply inscribed with the words, Netherworld Inn. It must be said, the appearance of this inn was indeed like a ghost ship, fittingly eerie. Especially with the red lantern illumination, it truly seemed as if ghosts inhabited it. The Netherworld Inn continued sailing without any intention of stopping. At this moment, Murong brother couldn't help but shout, "Stop the boat!" And the Netherworld Inn indeed came to a halt. Having the experience of previously going undercover as a doorman, Duan Yun and Murong brother had gained some experience. This time, wearing the masks of gold-class assassins, they were not too nervous and headed straight for this water-based inn. After boarding, they were greeted by a tall, thin man clad in white clothes, wearing a tall hat, looking truly like the Grim Reaper White Impermanence. "What can I do for you?" the thin man asked. "We wish to enter the villa." Duan Yun attempted to imitate the tone of a male assassin. "Please show your token to arrange accommodations for you," the pale-faced thin man responded. This left Duan Yun and Murong brother stumped. Forget these two male assassins, even the two female assassins were thoroughly searched by Duan Yun, who checked their bodies and corpses, yet found no token. It must be that these four had placed the token somewhere else before they acted. Suddenly, Murong brother had a bright idea and slapped the thin man across the face. With a loud slap, the sound was resounding. The thin man staggered, nearly falling off the boat. "Look clearly at my face. What? Is my face no longer effective? We need to enter the villa now." Murong brother advanced menacingly. The thin man, still reeling from the slap and seeing stars, did not dare to delay and quickly said, "Apologies, senior. I'll arrange it immediately." At this moment, Duan Yun couldn't help but wonder if Murong brother also possessed extraordinary wisdom, coming up with such a fierce tactic. They were wearing human skin masks, initially somewhat worried about being discovered, but now Murong brother had turned the tables in a flash, not only slapping someone but also making them take a good look at his face, questioning its effectiveness. Chapter 309. This stunt was likely enough to prevent anyone from doubting their authenticity. They heard a couple of splashes as two pitch-black coffins were placed in the water, the thin man who had just been slapped standing by, utterly respectful. The front parts of these coffins were even carved with dragon heads, giving off the feel of dragon boats. However, Duan Yun wasn't particularly surprised by the design of these coffins. After all, he had already learned on his journey that Yuanling was the birthplace of dragon boats. It is said that in this region haunted by ghosts and zombies, boating is rather dangerous, and dragon boats not only represent auspiciousness but also have the power to ward off evil spirits. And the Netherworld Mountain Villa being located in this area, it was quite reasonable to follow local customs. Duan Yun and the Murong brothers wasted no time. One person per coffin, they laid themselves down straight inside. It must be said, these coffins must have been made of golden silk nan wood, for lying in them felt quite comfortable. Compared to sleeping outside and being bitten by mosquitoes, it was like going from hell to heaven. Thus, They soon closed their eyes, and to the fellow disciples at the Ghost Inn, they seemed to have departed quite peacefully. The coffins were soon sealed and, just as Duan Yun had learned, they were indeed very sturdy and could effectively isolate one's senses. Afterward, their coffins floated downstream. On the deck, a fat man had joined the thin man. The fat man could not help saying, "We're only following the rules. Why was he so fiery today?" The thin man with the swollen face lamented. "Who knows, it must be because the mission's not going smoothly, so he took it out on me. Don't mention it, the target they're going after this time is indeed tough." "Who is it?" "Old Demon Duan," the fat man replied. "That kind of mission they took on, no wonder, certainly not easy to deal with," the thin man said. His appearance might seem calm, but inside he was already cursing. "Damn bastard. I bet you'll eventually fall and be raped and murdered by Mr. Duan. Then have the green blade demon chop you into pieces, begging your own wife for humiliation. When the time comes, it'd be blissful for your 4 wives to serve the old demon and then be killed." The thin man had guessed half the plot correctly but didn't realize that flowing downstream were, in fact, old demon Duan and the green blade demon. Logically speaking, when reaching the valley the river should split into branches, causing disarray with many possible directions to take, which was why the Netherworld Mountain Villa was notoriously elusive. Otherwise, anyone sleeping in a coffin and drifting down could reach the Netherworld Mountain Villa, making it far too easy to locate. So how could one reach the prearranged destination? Duan Yun had speculated that maybe the Netherworld Mountain Villa was breeding some kind of creature underwater. These creatures should be trained, just like the cattle and horses on land, to pull the coffins along certain routes. And if there were any alterations to the coffins midway, like being broken open, they might trigger mechanisms like releasing poisonous smoke inside the coffin to kill a person. And the creatures underwater would not go to the Netherworld Mountain Villa but rather to some certain deadly places. This might be why those who tried to open their coffins along the way all died. Of course, this was just Duan Yun's guess. There are many methods in this world that cannot be deduced with common sense. Right now, he did not plan to unravel this secret because their primary goal was to exterminate everyone in the Netherworld Mountain Villa. These were but minor details. Yes, they had yet to begin unleashing their pent-up fury. In the darkness of the coffins, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers could hardly feel the passage of time. Even the flow of the water or the movement of the coffins was barely perceptible. They slept in the dark, always with the eerie illusion that the coffin might drift towards the Netherworld rivers. After all, according to legend, the Netherworld Mountain Villa was truly connected to the Netherworld. After an unknown period, the coffins were opened by others. Duan Yun and the Murong brothers climbed out, finding themselves on a rocky beach. Above the stone beach was a lush growth of pines and cypresses, and hidden amongst them were faint pathways. The coffin openers were an old man and woman with white hair. The 2 elders had rough skin and plenty of age spots on their faces. In Duan Yun's words, they had the sinister look perfect for a horror movie. Yet the couple was more polite than the thin man, greeting Duan Yun and the Murong brothers respectfully upon meeting them. The 2 did not linger, choosing a path at random. They made their way up with the air of someone returning home at ease. The path was paved with old stone slabs, surrounded by pine and cypress, within which were grass-covered grave mounds. In such a night, it indeed seemed ghastly and terrifying. To ordinary people this place might feel ghastly and terrifying, but Duan Yun and the Murong brothers were quite exhilarated, because they were finally nearing the Netherworld Mountain Villa. Arriving for an extermination, how could they not be excited to enter? They had already planned to do something big if they were to act. Their first target was the manor master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa. Kill the biggies first, then the small fries, wipe them all out, show no mercy. At that moment, the Murong brothers suddenly came to a halt, warning, "Careful, there are traps." One could see him stepping on a fragmented stone slab, which slightly depressed the moment it sank, and he stood frozen. As an old hand at navigating the martial world, he knew well that this stone slab was a trap. Then, with a gentle shift of his foot, he moved on to another slab. Having detected the trap, both of them utilized light body skills, as light as feathers, leaving no sound upon their landing. Even if the ground was covered in snow, they probably wouldn't leave any footprints. For masters like them, such traps were not difficult to deal with. It wasn't long before, through the faint mist ahead, the silhouette of a mountain villa appeared. Chapter 310. Just by looking from here, the mountain villa appears majestic and solemn. Originally, Yuju Villa was not small, but from this vantage point it seemed pitifully tiny. Dragon and a snake, no, more like a dragon and an earthworm. On either side of the villa's main gates, a string of red lanterns still hung, casting a red glow against the black-painted gates. There was no one guarding the entrance, so Duan Yun and Murong walked right in. Entering the main gate, the full scale of the villa gradually came into view. The gate was originally 5 zhang high, presumed by them to be fittingly monumental. Comparably, in Duan Yun's previous life, some properties were marketed simply with the construction of an impressive community gate before even laying the foundation. But inside, they realized their mistake. The entire villa was enormous. The ground stone slabs were each the size of 5 or 6 ordinary slabs, and the array of buildings were at least 2 or 3 zhang high per floor. The steps were the most direct measure. One stair was almost up to one's waist, making even their long legs somewhat ineffective. Trees within the villa were towering, giving them the sensation of venturing into a land of giants. The vastness of Netherworld Villa made them feel insignificant. After climbing several dozen unimaginably high steps, what appeared before them were huge cages. These cages were suspended from numerous large trees, each holding a person. Without exception, all the people wore ferocious iron masks and were unclothed. From here, they looked no different than the canaries kept by wealthy families. Just as rich people's canaries are caged and hung on trees, these people were also caged and hung on trees. When Duan Yun trembled witnessing those 2 female assassins, he hadn't seen such a scene, but what came next was familiar to him. Ahead was a gigantic stone tower carved with the words, Futu. This place can be said to be the main hall of Netherworld Villa, where assassins receive and submit assignments, and deliberations occur. Inside the tower was pitch dark except for a green light shining. Beneath the green light, a strangely featured old man was flipping through a register, seemingly managing something akin to the Book of Life and Death from the underworld. Duan Yun and Murong approached, and the old man glanced at them briefly before continuing with his task. Thinking of quickly locating the manor master of Netherworld Villa to vent their anger, Murong straightforwardly asked, "Where's the manor master?" "I want to see the manor master." The old man showed displeasure, glanced at Murong, and without paying him any heed, continued with his task. Murong inquired again, "Didn't you hear what I said?" The old man, unfazed by honor or disgrace, retorted, "You've been here for so long. Do you still want an old man like me to teach you brothers' manners?" It was clear, this old man held no insignificant position in the villa. Even Murong's status as top assassins seemed unable to pressure him. Just as Duan Yun contemplated forcibly abducting the old man to lead the way instilled with heroic spirit, a crisp snap was heard. Murong leapt up and delivered a huge slap to the old man, spinning him 1,800 degrees in the air before he crash-landed, smashing the table. Murong moved closer, his golden assassin's face looming, and said, "Take a good look at my face. Not working now, is it? We want to see the manor master immediately." The old man, clearly a master himself, only reddened slightly from the harsh slap as his temples throbbed, a sign of highly proficient external and internal power. Duan Yun thought that the method used just now was effective, but against such a senior, it likely wouldn't work, deciding on a sneak attack to capture and refine him. Unexpectedly, the old man quickly got up, his tone gentle. "The manor master is in Impermanence Hall. Here is a token for an audience. Take it." Murong took the token and headed out. The old man's gaze gradually turned venomous, muttering softly, "Damn, these little brats, becoming assassins and daring to disrespect the elderly? They're not even the second manor master yet." Just then, Murong suddenly turned his head. His eyes wide as bells, angrily shouted, "Old man, What are you mumbling about? The old man immediately tensed up and said, I said take care. Humph. Morong turned and continued onwards. By this time, even Duan Yun had to admire him. In this territory were a hefty slap and this fake face this effective? Just as the old man was cursing and sitting up, he was startled again by a sharp slap sound and a miserable yelp from outside the hall. It turned out that a dog in the villa, walking fine before, was inexplicably slapped by Morong, tumbling into the bushes. Morong's eyes gleamed like a bloodthirsty madman as he licked his lips, his palms trembling with excitement. Damn! The sensation of upholding justice found its teeth. Chapter 311. In the depths of the netherworld, there is impermanence. Morong's siblings and Duan Yun originally didn't know the way, but as Morong brothers swung their arms and slapped people around, they quickly became familiar with the route. In front of them, a silver badge assassin was inexplicably slapped by Morong brothers, then just as mysteriously led them to Impermanence Hall. Until now, he still felt it all very baffling. Although this silver badge assassin had killed countless people and even had a perverted hobby of chopping off people's toes to play with, his notorious reputation was of no use inside the mountain villa. An official one rank higher crushes the one below. Inside Netherworld Mountain Villa, a gold badge assassin is indeed more awesome than a silver badge one, unless he could kill a gold badge assassin to take their place. But sadly, he didn't dare. He wasn't confident. At least not confident as of now. So the silver badge assassin's heart was just like that thin innkeeper's from the Netherworld Inn. So filled with hatred he was itching for revenge, praying that these two brothers would be seduced then raped and killed by old Demon Duan, and hoping even their wives would be captured by old Demon Duan and locked up in his dark underground chamber. Indeed, if these two gold badge assassins died, he just had to work hard at his performance, and there was a chance to move up. After all, he could be ranked within the top 5 among the silver badge assassins in the villa. But it's a good thing that he can vent out the frustration caused by the gold badge assassins on the copper badge assassins later. Tonight, he will go and fiercely sleep with old Zhang's wife. Right ahead. Big brother, I can't go in, the silver badge assassin said respectfully. In the front there was a forest with a stone path through it. From here, one could barely make out the silhouette of a building at the end of the stone path, with scarlet lanterns swaying in the wind, which must be the Impermanence Hall where the Manor Master resides. Morong brothers waved their hand, dismissing the other party. Indeed, after they were as unrecognizable as old Demon Duan, he could be even more imposing than old Demon Duan. It was all because of his looks. Morong brothers were getting a bit inflated with arrogance for a moment. It has to be said, the way here slapping all faces has been extremely satisfying. No wonder Duan Yun likes to play the young hero. The silver badge assassin quickly took the opportunity to slip away, but as he left, he slowly realized something. Wait, these two brothers are gold badge assassins. Shouldn't an experienced gold badge assassin know the way to Impermanence Hall? Is this aimed at me? Oh no. The bastard probably wants to sleep with my wife. This is just like his desire to sleep with the copper badge assassin old Zhang's wife. But I just got married. It can only be said that being an assassin is fraught with risks. It's not only about making mistakes while killing, but also about guarding against colleagues who might steal your home. If he had known, he would not have gotten married. That's the order in Netherworld Mountain Villa. It's hard to surpass those above you, but it's common to covet the wives of those below. That's also the reason why assassins usually don't get married, and desperately try to climb up the ranks. He had considered leaving the organization, but neither dared nor could. Those who betray the Netherworld Mountain Villa can only wait for death, and as an assassin it's easy to make money. It's one of the fastest money-making professions. He had already got used to the feeling of killing people with pleasure and spending silver just as willingly. He'd taken the shape of the assassin required by Netherworld Mountain Villa, and couldn't go back to his old ways. However, thinking of his newly-wed wife possibly being endangered, the silver badge assassin couldn't help but have a chilling feeling. No way. Just as he was contemplating whether he should take precautions, maybe placing a hidden weapon in his wife's underwear, or seeking help from an elder, a voice sounded behind him. Have you discovered something? The silver badge assassin stiffly turned his head, only to see two faces that were nearly identical, looking at him amiably. For some reason, although the faces were extremely similar, he still felt the person on the left was handsomer and the one on the right was seedier. My wife. You can do whatever you want with her. The word play hadn't even left the mouth of the assassin when his body slowly collapsed. Duan Yun deftly sucked away some mud nearby, creating a pit, and Murong Brothers dumped his body into it. Then, with the operation of Biming divine skill, the pit returned to normal, making it difficult to discover that someone was buried there. Before killing the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa, they were quite wary of exposing their tracks. Duan Yun considered this. At this moment, Murong Brothers asked, "Should we go back and kill that old man and that dog too?" "No need to go back. Let's go for the big one first." "All right." Thinking about engaging in a big fight, Murong Brothers got even more excited. His hands were getting itchier and itchier, so he couldn't help but say, "Wait and watch my performance." Murong Brothers were inflated with arrogance once again. After eliminating the person most likely to suspect them, the two headed towards Impermanence Hall. At the end of the stone path, Impermanence Hall also came into view. In the scarlet light, the three characters Impermanence Hall also seemed like they were just smeared with blood, extremely scarlet. The entire hall was embedded in the mountain, with its gate resembling the mouth of a monster, indeed somewhat similar to the rumored underworld, eerie and ghastly. As they were about to approach, a woman floated out from the gate. This woman was dressed in white, fluttering like a fairy or female hero if it was during the day, but in this spooky environment, she looked more like a female ghost. "Who dares to intrude Impermanence Hall?" Her voice was also light and airy, as if natural. Murong Brothers walked over and said, "I want to see the manor master." He was ready. If the other party dared say anything contrary to him, his slapping hand was ready to strike again. But the result was the sound of a crisp slap. It was the sound of a loud slap. However, the one slapped was not this female ghost, but Murong Brothers. Murong Brothers' face swelled up from the slap, a bit dumbfounded. "How dare you speak to me like that?" the female ghost asked with a pallid face. Chapter 312. Murong Brothers shook their heads, stars flashing before their eyes as he said, "You slapped me? I am." With a slap, another echo of a slap resonated. Murong was slapped again. "Do you two brothers really think you can be so presumptuous without advancing any further? I'm having an affair with the manor master, which makes me equivalent to the manor lady. Is that how you speak to the lady of the Netherworld Mountain Villa? Do I see a lascivious look in your eyes? Do you want to sleep with me?" "I didn't." This female ghost was rather ugly, so much so that Murong could hardly bear it. "The manor master wants to sleep with me, but you don't. Are you implying the manor master has poor taste? Watch it or I'll tell him, and you won't be able to keep reveling in madness." The female ghost once again approached the Murong brothers, causing Murong to involuntarily step back. Whether it was because he was dazed from the slap or because this woman was genuinely strong, Murong had been completely overwhelmed from start to finish. At this moment, the female ghost turned to look at Duan Yun and asked, "Why are you staring at me like that? Do you want to rough me up? The manor master isn't here. You can try. I'm not stopping you." Before the female ghost could finish speaking, a white sword chi pierced through her brow. Damn. This was the ugliest shadow woman he had ever seen. Completely unbearable. However, the shadow female ghost had strong cultivation. Even so, she leaped up instantly, her legs snapping together towards Duan Yun like scissors. With a sweep of his right hand, Duan Yun instantly redirected the scissors. A grunt was heard, and Murong fell to the ground, his head clamped tight. "Duan, help, help!" Murong was in a tight bind, finding it difficult to breathe, his voice muffled. Duan Yun attempted to pry the legs apart, only to be shocked. He couldn't pry them open. Though the woman was already dead, her legs still bit into Murong tightly, like the firmest lock, refusing to let go even in death. With two snaps, True Qi surged within Duan Yun, who forcibly broke the leg apart and finally rescued Morong. Morong's face was purple, his lips swollen and tearing. He sputtered, "That creature! It has poison!" Thereafter, he quickly lay down and started using his true Qi to force the poison out. With a snap, a trail of blood bloomed on Morong's swollen lips. Only then did Morong manage to force out the poison and catch his breath. It had to be said, the woman's dying strike was peculiarly sinister. Not only able to lock a person's head but also to spray poison, causing one to be poisoned. Morong, who had been smooth sailing the whole journey, encountered his first setback, his mouth swollen like a sausage, but still he boldly declared, "Let's go, on to bigger things." Thereafter, the two swiftly disposed of the body and headed towards the impermanence hall. Upon entering the main gate, they were greeted by a stone path only wide enough for two to pass. Duan Yun and Morong couldn't help but pause. Everything had seemed so grand since they entered the netherworld mountain villa, as if they had intruded into a giant's world. But suddenly the stone path narrowed, out of sync with the nearly 90-foot-tall gate behind them. The narrow path was covered with yellow talisman papers, some rotting with new ones pasted on top, creating a dense array. The path was not entirely dark, due to the flickering of firelight at the end of the path. The environment was a bit eerie. Morong and Duan Yun lightened their steps as they moved forward. Past the stone path, the space behind opened up quite a bit. At the end of the stone path was a sizable pool. The water in the pool was turquoise, not very clear, making it difficult to gauge its depth. In that instant, Duan Yun and Morong's breathing nearly halted. There was something in the water. From here, it looked as though there were people standing in the turquoise water. Morong and Duan Yun looked closely. The people inside were none other than green-faced with fangs, their skin clinging to bones. Zombies. Having heard many stories about zombies in Yuanling, the first thing that sprung to their minds was this. What was under the water were the legendary zombies. Among them, two especially rigid figures stood out. Because they were so tall, estimated to be about 10 feet in height, other adult-sized zombies seemed like children in comparison. These zombies all had their eyes closed, appearing to be in deep slumber. Who could have imagined that the master of Netherworld Mountain Villa was nurturing so many zombies here? At this moment, the eerie and bizarre atmosphere was so dense that even the Morong brothers, who were just bursting with heroic spirit, shivered. Yes, this group of zombies, especially the two largest ones, gave off a tremendous oppressive feeling. And beyond this pond, there stood a room nearly 15 feet tall. On both sides of the room, the couplets added up to only 8 words. No right or wrong, only impermanence. From here, one could see the light of flames burning inside. The brightness they had seen before was indeed spilling out from within. Duan Yun and the Morong brothers crossed the wooden bridge over the pool and arrived in front of a window outside the room. With a gentle push of true Qi from Duan Yun's palm, the wooden window silently opened. The two turned back to glance at the two zombies in the pool and noticed that they had no reaction, so they bent down and entered. They were curious to see what else the master of Netherworld Mountain Villa was hiding. Upon entering, the first thing they saw were the hanging talisman papers. Quite long, the space here was much more open than they had anticipated. Hanging from above were long sheets of talisman paper, fully covered with red runes. These Taoist runes, rather than providing a sense of stability, seemed ghastly and chilling. The center of the room featured a stone path, stretching deep into the darkness, with rough stone steps on either side and stone lamps interspersed throughout. On the higher tiers of stone steps, round wooden stumps were placed. These wooden stumps were affixed with yellow talisman papers, except these were all wet and sticking to the surface. It was extremely quiet all around, and areas not illuminated by the stone lamps were pitch black, making it difficult for Duan Yun and the Morong brothers to ascertain the size of this space at first glance. The deeper they went, the more of those round wooden stumps they found. As Duan Yun walked among them, he always had a strange feeling. Suddenly, a chanting voice arose. Someone? Duan Yun and the Morong brothers were startled. quickly holding their breath and focusing their spirit as they looked around them. The chanting was not loud, but in the quiet sanctuary it was quite evident. 3 grades of medicines combine, spirit and energy align, vacantly hazy, dimly far away. Hold the void, possess the being. In a moment it forms, with returning wind blending, 100 days of spiritual cultivation. Silently worship the deities, in one era ascend high, the enlightened easily comprehend, the ignorant hard to abide. Traverse the heavenly brightness, breathe and nurture purity, between the profound and feminine, like gone, like exist. At first, this voice seemed distant, yet soon it felt as if it were right beside them. Beside them, Duan Yun looked around and finally turned his gaze toward a round wooden stump beside him. There was a slit on this wooden stump. He leaned in for a closer look and recoiled in shock, because from that slit he saw a mouth that was chanting, revealing bone-white teeth. Duan Yun tapped the Murong brothers, and upon checking the other stumps, he found that every single one contained such a mouth. Could this mean that in every stump there was a person? But these stumps were at most slightly larger than a cutting board. How could a living person be rolled into such a thing? There were quite a few such stumps. Sinister, truly sinister. The master of Netherworld Mountain Villa was practicing some kind of evil skill, creating so many eerie wooden stumps with mouths. These wooden stumps were lined up on the stone steps, each with damp talisman papers attached, as if they were each a stone stele being worshipped. Duan Yun couldn't help but recall the cages hanging in front of Fudu Hall. The people inside were like canaries. Those people were clearly imprisoned. Would they also end up rolled into these wooden stumps one day, leaving only a mouth that could chant spells? Listening to the increasingly overlapping chanting voices, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers felt a chilling sensation down to their bones. At this moment, they suddenly heard a rustling sound outside, followed by the noise of something emerging from the water. Had the zombies in the water awoken? Chapter 313. Surprise attack by the evil demon. The bloody battle begins. Hearing the noise outside, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers held their breaths and concentrated once again. The Murong brothers lay motionless on the steps, blending in with the stone stairs beneath them as if they were a corpse. Creak. The door of the room was pushed open and 2 very tall figures entered. Those 2 tallest zombies? Drip, drip. That was the sound of water droplets falling from the robes of the zombies. Duan Yun hid in the dark, quietly observing all of this. He noticed that the 2 massive zombies were each holding an umbrella. A red umbrella and a white umbrella were particularly conspicuous under the reflection of the firelight. It was only then that he saw clearly. The one with the red umbrella was actually a female zombie, mainly because her chest was very big. She was already close to 10 feet tall, and even with such height, her chest still appeared very large. It felt like the figure of the goddess catcher was enlarged proportionally. At that time, when he saw her underwater, he couldn't see clearly, but now everything became distinct. What surprised Duan Yun was that he suddenly had a strong desire to conquer her. Of course, this wasn't because he was perverted. A woman with such a figure seemed naturally able to evoke such desires in men, even though she was already a zombie. Based on his experience from watching zombie movies in his previous life, Duan Yun instinctively stopped breathing. The figures of the 2 umbrella-holding zombies came closer, with their massive shadows almost engulfing the nearby firelight. It was only at this time that Duan Yun and the Murong brothers could see clearly that there was actually a person in front of the 2 zombies. This was a small female Taoist, very short like a child. Duan Yun and the Murong brothers had not noticed her before because she was so small. She seemed even smaller compared to the zombies behind her, much like the disparity between Xiaoxi and Yao Ming. The female Taoist held a wooden bucket in her hand. It was unclear what was in the bucket, something that looked like a mix of red and yellow liquid. She scooped up a spoonful of the liquid from the bucket and fed it to a wooden stump beside her. Duan Yun couldn't help but wonder, is this feeding? If every wooden stump here needed to be fed, then the place where he was hiding would no longer be safe. He was ready to take action against the zombies and this female Taoist, even if he had not seen the main person in charge, but that would likely alert others prematurely. But being a hero is all about taking action. The small Kuan Dao carrying the bucket went to another set of stone stairs on the other side. From here, Duan Yun could see that she only fed a spoonful of that liquid to the mouth within each wooden stump. The two umbrella-holding zombies stood on the walkway below. The Murong brothers began to try moving, lying there and sliding upwards towards a higher spot like a maggot. In the blink of an eye, the Murong brothers suddenly stopped. This was because the zombie holding the white umbrella suddenly looked over in their direction. Duan Yun had initially lain in a relatively high place and remained motionless, blending into the darkness. However, the white umbrella zombie only glanced over there for a moment before returning to its original state. At this time, the chanting in the entire hall grew louder, the overlapping voices carrying a sense of eeriness mixed with solemnity and reverence. At this time, the small female Taoist had come to this side, getting closer and closer to Duan Yun. And just as the female Taoist was getting closer and closer to where Duan Yun was hiding, the food in the bucket was gone. The female Taoist, carrying the empty bucket, turned around and left. And the two zombies followed her with their umbrellas. From this angle, Duan Yun felt like the two zombies were ghost messengers capturing souls, and the small female Taoist looked like the soul being captured. Later, the door was shut, their shadows on the window paper becoming more distant until they disappeared. This showed that the wooden stumps here could not be fed in one go. But what exactly was she feeding them? Duan Yun and the Murong brothers got up at this time. Without speaking, they both instinctively went to a nearby wooden stump and saw some residue of the liquid at the mouth. There must be a person inside each wooden stump, and each was only fed a spoonful of food at a time, just enough to keep them alive for the chanting. What kind of hellish joke was this? Or rather, the Impermanence Hall in this Netherworld mountain villa was essentially a place of hell. Such actions clearly involved some sort of sinister secret technique. For a moment, the Murong brothers felt like they had transformed into the divine catcher investigating a horrifying case. No one is better at investigating than me. Duan Yun and the Murong brothers took a look outside, and everything was quiet again. But thinking of the zombies in the water, the Murong brothers instinctively stuck to the dark walls as they walked. But as soon as they approached the wall, they were startled. The pitch-black walls were also full of wooden stumps, which seemed to sense them and couldn't help but tremble, making the whole wall come to life in a very horrifying scene. Looking at the dense wooden stumps hanging on the wall with straw ropes, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers felt their scalps go numb. How many people were there? Compared to the wooden stumps on the steps, these wall stumps were obviously more withered. If the stumps on the steps looked like fresh meat, then these hanging on the wall were like cured meat and were hung in a way very similar to cured meat. Previous stumps still had some signs of life and human presence, while those on the walls only had an evil presence. Sure enough, they were the practices of evil demons who must have harmed countless people. Duan Yun and the Murong brothers continued to walk inside. They wanted to know what else was hidden here. What exactly did the manor master of this Netherworld mountain villa want to do? Once they discovered his secret, of course, they wouldn't threaten him with something like, "Manor master, you wouldn't want your secret to be uncovered, right?" Instead, they aimed to thoroughly investigate and see if they could transform evil into good and use it for themselves. Chapter 3:14. Yes, those that the evil demon cannot control, these kinds of heroes filled with heroic spirit might just be able to control them. What the evil demon uses for evil, perhaps these heroes might use for the good of mankind. Ahead, the temple hall has reached its end, replaced by another wooden window, just like the previous ones. Here, the chanting from the wooden stumps had faded slightly. The two looked back, feeling an illusion that they were being recited their last rites. Then, without further hesitation, they pushed open the window again and climbed through. This room was noticeably smaller but felt even more dangerous and terrifying. On the ground, fragments of those wooden stumps were left, still stained with blood. Damn! Could they have been eaten? Murong spoke seriously. These wooden stumps were reduced to fragments. The missing parts appeared to be teeth marks, as if gnawed on by something. So, those outside wooden stumps were really brought in to be eaten. Ahead, a white cloth curtain appeared. The curtain was clean, with nothing on it, yet it elicited a sense of horror in this room. There was something behind the curtain. By this point, the broken wooden fragments on the ground had become more abundant, and the air was filled with the scent of blood. Duan Yun and Murong instinctively lightened their steps to the utmost, moving closer like two agile black cats. The moment the curtain was lifted, blood-stained chains came into view. Above the chains, a corpse was hanging upside down. Seeing this corpse, Duan Yun was reminded of the corpse manipulated by Huang Shi. Back then, inside that dilapidated temple, he saw Huang Shi hang the corpse upside down on a rope, saying that with its feet off the ground, it wouldn't absorb the earthly energy and combined with Qingquan inversion, wouldn't transform into a zombie. But the corpse in front of them had clearly turned into a zombie, and it had transformed drastically. It also was very tall, its hands and flesh wrapped with dark iron chains. These chains seemingly fused into its flesh as if they were growing from its arms. Vaguely, one could see lines flowing along the corpse's body. These lines were red, subtle yet visible. Hands wrapped in dark iron chains, blood flowing like fire. Is this corpse King Mr. Ren? Duan Yun puzzled aloud. The corpse in front of them exactly matched the description of Corpse King Mr. Ren as told by Huang Shi. Could it be that Mr. Ren wasn't destroyed but was acquired by the manor master of this netherworld mountain villa and locked up here? But was this Corpse King still alive? Could it be that those wooden stumps rolling up people were eaten by this Corpse King? Duan Yun leapt agilely, quickly reaching the same height as the bound corpse. He grabbed the chains, observing closely. Although there was blood flowing like fire on the Corpse King, it had dimmed significantly. From his expertise as a gynecologist, he concluded it wasn't far from death. Moreover, he discovered many holes in the Corpse King's body. A large part of its flesh had been hollowed out. Suddenly, Murong also jumped up, giving him a meaningful look. Duan Yun instantly understood his intention. Someone's coming. Without any hesitation, Duan Yun clambered up against the chains, pressing against the ceiling. Meanwhile, Murong somehow found a bed and dived under it. Outside, a slight shuffling of footsteps could be heard. Judging by the sound alone, the person seemed to have a limp. The manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa? In the dim space, this uneven footsteps carried an oppressive force, almost as if impermanence was coming to claim a life. For a moment, both Duan Yun and Murong held their breaths. Hiding under the bed, Murong listened quietly to the sounds. Being under the bed gave him a sense of security. If only old Demon Duan were above with a beauty. Murong quickly diverted his thoughts. Lying under the bed and imagining old Demon Duan above had almost become a habit. Creak, the door was pushed open. Duan Yun, pressed against the ceiling, soon saw a blurred figure through the white curtain, while Murong, under the bed, could only see a pair of boots. These boots were silver white, looking heavy and sharp, possessing a significant oppressive force. The figure headed straight behind the curtain. Until this moment, Duan Yun could see that the comer was clad in a Taoist robe, wearing a silver mask, indiscernible as male or female. The reason for the ambiguity stemmed from the fact that, outside the green Taoist robe, there were two silver bowl-like objects fastened at the chest, hiding the specifics of the bust. Of course, under such dim conditions, it was impossible to see more details. Only someone like the manor master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa could walk in here so boldly. The person went straight to a corner of the room, and then, a chilling scene unfolded. A wooden stump was taken out by the silver-faced figure. As he shook it, the stump suddenly emitted chanting sounds. 3 ranks of medicine, spirit and energy, vague and void, dark and deep, holding nothing and guarding something, swiftly accomplished, wind mixing, 100 days of spiritual cultivation. Along with this chanting, there was also a horrible chewing sound. The silver-faced figure was gnawing at the stump, from which blood could be seen continuously seeping out. and the chanting from the stump remained intermittent but never ceased. Although the Murong brothers could only see a pair of legs, they could already imagine the horrifying scene. Turned out it was not zombies eating these stumps, but humans. The manor master of the Netherworld mountain villa. Just hearing the chanting of these stumps easily brought to mind the spells chanted by Taoists during alchemy. Could it be that the manor master of the Netherworld mountain villa was consuming the people inside these stumps as elixirs? It was evident that the silver-faced Taoist had a hearty appetite, consuming 3 stumps before stopping. He likely didn't realize the presence of Duan Yun and the Murong brothers. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dined so uninhibitedly. After finishing his meal, he walked out leisurely. Honestly, the eating scene of this cannibalistic evil demon was genuinely filled with intense horror. Although young hero Duan instinctively felt some fear, he was already prepared to take action. A cannibalistic horror demon? I'm here to slay such demons. His eyes narrowed slightly, watching the position of the silver-faced Taoist, but the next moment, he saw more figures appearing by the wooden window and the door. Zombies in the water? When did they arrive? Be careful. Duan Yun thought of something and promptly cautioned. Almost simultaneously, a silver light whizzed through the air, aiming straight under the bed at the Murong brothers. With a loud bang, the wooden bed shattered into splinters, air ripples waving through the atmosphere. The Murong brothers were seen holding the jade blade horizontally at face side, with a silver bullet still spinning on the blade, pressing down further until even the already indented ground continued to sink. The power of this silver bullet was terrifyingly formidable. With a swish, the Murong brothers rolled the blade's edge, bringing up the spring rain blade power, striking back the silver bullet with an equally shocking momentum. The result was the silver-faced Taoist catching the silver bullet back in his hand with apparent ease. Just as he was about to flick the bullet again, at that moment, a figure appeared on his right side. Duan Yun stood there, holding his blade steadily and exuding immense pressure, making it difficult for him to move. Murong brothers raised their blade, their foreheads covered in sweat. Had it not been for Duan Yun's timely reminder, coupled with his quick reflexes, the silver bullet might have hit him, which would have been unimaginable. At this time, the silver-faced Taoist had already seen the 2 men's faces and suddenly spoke. "How did you 2 brothers end up here?" Duan Yun replied, "We were here to see the manor master. Finding no one around, we entered." The silver-faced Taoist asked, "What for?" His face masked and his chest fastened with silver bowls. His voice was like that of a deity or demon, completely devoid of emotional fluctuations. "Your wife is dead." As the words fell, Duan Yun had already made his move. Almost at the same time, 2 streaks of silver light whistled towards Duan Yun and the Murong brothers. They were coming from the 2 silver bowls on his chest. Using bra cups as weapons, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers struck, their blade lights like a sweeping practice. With 2 loud pops, the blade edge and the silver bowls collided, creating a terrifying explosion of sound, causing piercing pain in the ears and buzzing in the head. At that moment, a rumbling sound of shattering echoed. Dozens of zombies suddenly stormed into the room. The silver-faced Taoist stood there, calm and composed. "Since you've come here, try the hospitality of my poor Taoist practice." Almost simultaneously, a red umbrella spun down from the sky, rolling towards Duan Yun. Chapter 3:15. Fierce Battle. Master Duan cuts through his middle. The red umbrella flew in, carrying a spiraling force, similar to that notorious blood dripper from the martial world which could easily decapitate someone. Duan Yun's internal breaking body sword energy surged, releasing a sword chi upward. With a thud, sounding like morning bells and evening drums. Apparently, the umbrella was made of some kind of metal. It was neither punctured nor pushed aside. At this moment, a female zombie with a rather large chest had already flown over and was pressing down on the umbrella. This giant-breasted zombie, surprisingly heavy, forced Duan Yun's feet to crush the floor, bending his knees slightly. The next moment, Duan Yun's fingers suddenly stretched out from the surface of the umbrella, vibrating eerily, and unleashed a flurry of finger strength at the female zombie. The female zombie's lower abdomen was hit by the flirtatious finger strength, and although initially unresponsive due to being a zombie, it couldn't withstand the high frequency of Duan-Yun's finger strength. After a few breaths, more than 10 streams of flirtatious finger strength merged into a rippling wave on her body. Ugh! The female zombie suddenly let out a groan, clamped her legs together, her body tilted, and she slid downward. Duan-Yun seized the opportunity to break through the red umbrella, emerged from underneath, and unleashed a series of rapid finger strikes at the female zombie. The female zombie trembled on the ground, her chest blurring from the ripples. Little you. At the same time, death energy sprayed from Duan-Yun's waist belt, conjuring the netherworld female sword immortal image. Jade Sword Finger. Almost simultaneously, Jade Sword Finger sword energy shot out repeatedly, smashing toward the female zombie. This blow burst her clothes open, leaving holes and emitting white smoke. The fact that Jade Sword Finger could not penetrate her showed that her body was tougher than steel. Seeing this, the Manor Master of Netherworld Mountain Villa's face turned green. This red umbrella zombie, whom he cultivated as his dual cultivation partner, was being toyed with like this. Only a buzzing sound was heard, but Duan-Yun's sword in his hand wasn't unsheathed. This time, 2 silver bowls came attacking in a pincer move, and Duan-Yun, knowing their vibration would resonate with sound, played his fingers across them again. No vibration has ever scared him. Flirtatious finger thrust. Armed with the terrifying flirtatious finger thrust, the finger strength projected like bullets, striking the 2 silver bowls. The bowls immediately dropped, emitting a moan similar to a woman's. The Manor Master of Netherworld Mountain Villa's face turned even greener. What's wrong with these bowls? He had killed countless with these bowls at his chest, rarely failing. But tonight not only did he fail, they even made such lustful noises. He waved his hand, splattering fresh blood, while the surrounding zombies charged toward Duan-Yun and Murong brothers like mad. At this moment, Murong brothers were constantly being attacked by a male zombie wielding a white umbrella. That zombie seemed to have springs on its feet. Each time after striking, it would immediately bounce back up and continue its assault, forcing the Murong brothers' sabers to never stop. What the Murong brothers couldn't accept was why old Demon Duan had to deal with the big-breasted female zombie, while they had to fight this ugly male zombie. At this moment, even more smaller zombies recklessly charged at him. 6 layers of spring rain. Come out! Murong brothers' hair fluttered as the rotating sword chi sliced like spinning wind. Approaching zombies were repelled. The tall black umbrella zombie tilted, and in an instant, Murong brothers kicked it away. It must be said, kicking the zombie's heart was like kicking a thick steel plate. He had just steadied himself when again zombies charged at him recklessly. Or rather, zombies inherently lack the concept of life. Murong brothers suddenly erupted in anger. Their jade blade in hand shone with a green light. Their hair also fluttered. Just as he was about to unleash a powerful move, Duan-Yun's voice already rang out. 16 strange fist, extreme hate. Duan-Yun had already leaped up. His Dharma image transformed into a pigtails Cheongsam-clad boxing girl, creating ripple-like patterns on her body. Damn! Even faster than me. Murong brothers had barely spoken when Duan-Yun's fist intent, roaring down, smashed. The violent fist intent knocked and blasted the zombies away. The walls and stone slabs exploded, dust flying. Even the surrounding fist winds became scorching hot, as if the air itself was about to ignite. But within this violent fist intent, a profound sorrowful emotion was mixed. These zombies had considerable holes blasted out of their bodies, which would be fatal if they were human, but it barely hindered them. What shocked the Manor Master of Netherworld Mountain Villa, the silver-faced Taoist, was that quite a few zombies lay on the ground as if they had lost the will to live, showing no desire to attack. Almost simultaneously, another voice sounded. Since ancient times, deep love leaves behind only regrets, this endless hatred. Eat my blade. Murong brothers with fluttering green hair, A terrifying green sword light formed a crescent shape, sweeping out. Green Blade Demon. The manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa had already guessed who was coming. He hadn't reacted yet when suddenly the zombies underneath him started speaking. "I want to become a hero." This voice coming out of a zombie's mouth was extremely eerie, startling even the master himself. In the next instant, the zombies emitting this voice started fighting among themselves. "Pass it on! Pass it on!" Duan Yun and Murong brothers leapt up, one chopping with his green saber at the "I want to become a hero" zombie group, the other smashing his fist at the green-tinted zombie group. After being relentlessly hammered by the two demons, this group of zombies indeed displayed the toughness of steel and iron, still able to move and attack. However, their attacks became chaotic. Visibly, the male zombie with the black umbrella and the female zombie with the red umbrella glanced at each other, their already green faces turning even greener. Chapter 316. In the next instant, the female zombie let out a soft cry and quickly grabbed two ordinary zombies, pressing them against her chest while using her legs to clamp down on others. The male zombie, on the other hand, gave a bear hug, grasping several ordinary male zombies and began to surge. The master of Netherworld Mountain Villa was shocked. At this moment, are they indulging in infidelity? The two zombie generals under his command, a man and a woman who were a loving couple in life, had been refined by him. As zombies, they shouldn't have such emotions, yet now they were engaging in mutual infidelity. Green Blade Demon, terrifying as such. And just then, the infidel zombies suddenly exclaimed loudly, "I want to be a hero." As soon as the voice fell, the two zombie generals increased their strength. One crushed the zombies on their body, the other shattered them into pieces. Old Demon Duan's supreme heroic spirit, and the remaining zombies were either hugging or gnawing at each other. It's chaos. Chaos. Complete chaos. If it weren't because they were zombies, one might even think it was some filthy feast. The zombies under the command of the master of Netherworld Mountain Villa were repeatedly defiled by the two old demons, making even their master unable to completely control them for a moment. Recently, when he learned that his subordinates were going to deal with Old Demon Duan, he also learned about Old Demon Duan and his friend Green Blade Demon. He believed that sending out 4 gold medal assassins skilled in treachery could ensure their safe return even if they couldn't kill Old Demon Duan. However, it turned out that they had been skinned and even led the enemy here. These two old demons are indeed dangerously evil, but this is the Netherworld Mountain Villa, and his divine skill is already perfected. He couldn't possibly lose. Only these two utterly unrepentant old demons can die. Roar! The Taoist with a silver face let out a roar, causing the air to tremble with flowing ripples. For a moment, the group of chaotic zombies shuddered as if struck by a point-blocking technique and fell into silence. Go! With a sweep of his sleeve, the Taoist sent 10 zombies hurtling towards Duan Yun and the Murong brothers like cannonballs. There were multiple booming noises, and a terrifying blaze instantly turned the room blood-red. Duan Yun and the Murong brothers rolled out from the dense smoke, their feet dragging on the ground for a while before stabilizing. The 10 or so zombies just now exploded like bombs with significant force. Ahead, the entire space was shrouded in smoke, blurring reality. Thinking of running, holding their breath, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers flickered, about to give chase. At that moment, the corpse king overhead suddenly stirred, and the dark iron chain as if merged with its flesh ferociously descended, smashing down. With clangs and sparks flying, Duan Yun and the Murong brothers simultaneously drew their swords, blocking the incoming dark iron chain, yet were forced several steps backwards. The force from the dark iron chain was terrifyingly fearsome. In the next moment, amidst the smoke, a humanoid figure faintly appeared. The master of Netherworld Mountain Villa. The corpse king's arm connected to the dark iron chain had become detached, and now it reached his hand, even seeming as though it had grown from his body. Indeed, from this view he appeared to have 4 arms. In Duan Yun and the Murong brothers' senses, this Taoist seemed to have suddenly become as dreadful as the corpse king himself, with an even more terrifying aura. Duan Yun didn't hesitate. With a screeching friction sound from the soles of his boots, he drew his sword and saber together, ready to launch an attack. But in the next instant, a dark iron chain touched the ground, causing the stone slabs to fly up like paper towards Duan Yun. Duan Yun's internal true chi surged, his sword and saber intersecting, shredding both the stone slabs and the subsequent smoke. But the master of Netherworld Mountain Villa was no longer there. Then there was a loud explosion. A huge hole appeared in the wall on the left. Thinking of running, Morong brothers reacted swiftly. As they were closer to the hole, grabbed their sabers and chased through the opening. Duan Yun followed closely behind, but then zombies within the smoke madly rushed forward, attempting to block the opening. Duan Yun circulated his internal true chi, his swords as if coated with a layer of frost, ferociously chopping down. The steel-hard zombies were instantly cut into several sections. Duan Yun kicked aside the bodies blocking the hole, but at that moment, a strong wind howled from behind, as two tall zombies leaped high, their steel umbrellas spinning, smashing towards him. From here, the two giant-like zombies indeed appeared like gods and demons. Truly annoying. Body-breaking sword pillar. D. Duan Yun roared without turning his head, lifting his hands towards the sky. Two sounds of swish. Two pitch-black sword pillars burst out, piercing through the bodies of two zombies and the roof as well. From this perspective, the two towering zombies looked as if they were hung up there. The male zombie's head was pierced, while the female zombie's heart was pierced. They struggled, but more sword silks entwined from the body-breaking sword pillar, trapping them. Duan Yun twisted his arm, causing the bodies of the two zombies to pause, and they vomited a series of foul, rotten fluids which seemed to contain long worms, their umbrella also slipping from their grip. At this moment, the zombies suddenly turned pale and cried out loudly, "I want to be a hero!" Afterwards, the female zombie swung her arms again, as if trying to grab a zombie to press against her chest, while the male zombie shrugged at the air. Duan Yun found this scene twisted, so he saw Duan Yun fling his arm, and the two sword pillars crossed into one. With a loud boom, the air surged, roof tiles exploded into fragments, and the two zombies merged into one. As their distance became negative, their bodies began to explode into pieces, like a grand fireworks display, quite beautiful. Duan Yun didn't have time to admire it, quickly making his escape through the hole. Morong brothers were never as talented as him, likely no match for that fellow. Outside was a forest with trenches on the ground from the fight. The trenches were still smoking, showing the intensity of the fight. Duan Yun quickly followed the traces. Accompanying him was a surging river. Duan Yun's ears perked up, hearing the sounds of fighting coming from below the river. With a step, he quickly rushed down the river. There was a moon in the sky, but it became dimmed by the mist. As Duan Yun raced through the river, the sounds of fighting became more distinct. Just then, his forward-charging body suddenly leaned back. With a swish, a trail of green jade blade sword chi flew past his body. Duan Yun turned his body and reached the riverbank. This sword chi must have been swung out by Morong brothers. In the dim environment, only two fiery red chains were seen wildly rotating. From here, these two mysterious iron chains looked just like iron rods from a furnace, glowing bright red. Their trajectory was rapid and fierce, unpredictable and hard to trace. Wherever the chains went, trees exploded, and the river stopped flowing. Occasionally, sparks would burst brightly, like fireworks. That was the green jade blade sword chi of Morong brothers clashing with the chains. Duan Yun could see that Morong brothers were at a disadvantage, the green blade sword chi growing dimmer. His figure swept past again, chasing the signs of battle. At this time, the fight between the two sides had reached its peak intensity, especially the swinging of the chains, which was so dense that it seemed impenetrable. For Duan Yun to rashly enter now would be dangerous, as in such an environment, he could easily get caught between Morong brothers and the silver-faced Taoist. The wisest course of action would naturally be to wait for them to continue fighting, until the Netherworld Mountain Villa Manor Master revealed an opening, then strike in one fell swoop. But in the next moment he charged in recklessly, because Murong brothers couldn't hold on any longer. Duan Yun's entire body released breaking body sword energy, looking like a black hedgehog as he rushed towards where Murong brothers were. En route, a chain swept past, colliding with the netherworld breaking body sword energy, igniting brilliant sparks, shredding his clothes, but he simply didn't care. With a crackling sound, a green light jumped up. That was Murong brothers' blades slipping from their hand. With two thuds, Murong brothers' bodies squirmed on the ground like maggots, barely dodging the two descending strikes. Just as he was somewhat suffocated, his legs cramping, and the situation looked dire, Duan Yun arrived. With a clang of explosion, sparks splashed like rain. Duan Yun's golden sword was swung out. Yes, swung like swinging a wooden plank, colliding with the incoming mysterious iron chain. The scattered sparks illuminated Duan Yun's figure, looking so valiant and upright. Murong brothers' eyes shone, both pained and excitedly said, "Duan Yun, if I were a woman, I would definitely marry you." Duan Yun, sword in hand, shielded Murong brothers behind him, responding, "I appreciate it, dude." Murong brothers spat out a mouthful of blood. Their hands trembling non-stop, eyes filled with concern, said, "His iron chains are strange. Try cutting him through the middle." Duan Yun looked into the darkness at the chain-wielding Taoist, seemingly with four hands, and said, "It's not that simple." Chapter 317. Extraordinary Wisdom Blooms, Comprehending the Breaking Body Black Sword. In the midst of the fog, by the riverside, the manor master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa was swinging his glowing red mystic iron chains, emitting a terrifying aura. It was probably similar to impermanence coming to take one's life, as mentioned in the legends. Duan Yun, wielding a blade and a sword, shook his shoulders and charged straight ahead. In the eyes of the Murong brothers, a humanoid wind tunnel appeared in front of them in the fog, a trail left by Duan Yun. Although the manor master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa was fearsome, excitement was what shone in Duan Yun's eyes. His extraordinary wisdom had long since told him that he was a battle-bred genius. High-quality combat would only awaken his potential and elevate him further. Let this evil demon become the stepping stone for this young hero. With a clang, the glowing red chains swept over like snakes, sending ripples through the air. Duan Yun kept advancing, his blade and sword performing a swift sweep, creating a sharp arc and striking the chains. The glowing red chains were hit at their vital point like a poisonous snake, and they went limp to the side. But in a moment, the two chains suddenly stiffened and swept across again. Two splendid sparks exploded in the air where the sword clashed with the mystic iron chains. The sparks bloomed ever more brightly, reminiscent of a blacksmith's fireworks. The next instant, the left chain suddenly went soft like a snake and smashed towards Duan Yun's head. Duan Yun flicked his sword upwards, deflecting it with a clang, but the vibration still made his hair flutter. The mystic iron chains were tricky because they could switch between soft and hard. When soft, they were like unpredictable whips, and when hard, they were like iron rods. At that moment, when the soft chains suddenly stiffened, they dragged Duan Yun aside. In this instant, Duan Yun remembered how the Taoist had used Scissors Kick to capture the Murong brothers before his death. It had a similar ingenuity to the technique he now faced. It had to be admitted, the manor master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa possessed incredible strength. Even Duan Yun felt pressured. But Duan Yun was not like the Murong brothers. Even under such a pincer attack, his hands were occupied, yet his feet were free. Toe sword, the breaking body sword energy burst forth, penetrating the top of his shoes. The later section of the mystic iron chain swung, deflecting the sword chi, but by then, Duan Yun's feet had kicked out together. Flirtatious toe strength. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The resonating toe strength burst forth like howling bullets. The swaying mystic iron chain deflected the toe sword, but the released sword chi cut through the surrounding trees. However, some of the flirtatious toe strength still slipped through the gaps. Two strikes hit the chest area of the manor master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa. One hit squarely on the silver bowl with an echoing sound, and the other struck the edge of the silver bowl, tearing his Taoist robe. Duan Yun had unleashed those two strikes with full force, akin to the power generated when standing up forcefully. Thus the strikes were extremely powerful. At that instant, the Manor Master's chest trembled. Blood surged downward, creating an odd sensation as if his milk was descending, causing his body to shiver involuntarily. Taking advantage of this shudder, Duan Yun kicked out frantically with toe strength. For a while, due to the high frequency and intense force, Duan Yun's boots burst. The left mystic iron chain could no longer attack Duan Yun. It went soft and curled up, deflecting the incoming toe strength. Toe strength scattered everywhere, with ripples filling the air. The Murong brothers lay there, recuperating, when suddenly a toe strength was deflected their way, hitting one right in the navel. Oh! The Murong brother squeezed his legs tightly together, but it was too late. Yellowish urine burst through his pants, spraying out. Watching this scene, the Murong brother lamented with a pained face. I've been overheating recently. Not just the Murong brothers, even the surrounding trees were caught in the wave of flirtatious toe strength, squirting out their sap. A nearby willow even splattered the face of the Murong brother. What about the Manor Master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa, the focus of the attack? His mystic iron chains swung faster and more fiercely, but there were still gaps that let some through. Pop, 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 several explosions sounded. The flirtatious toe strength blossomed around his body, but the Manor Master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa was remarkable. His bones and muscles stronger than a zombie's, and he took the onslaught head-on. Just then, he let out an "oh!" and his body trembled. This time, another strike of toe strength hit the same spot as before. Thus, he actually started to lactate. Some liquid, whether blood or something else, gushed from his chest, bringing an odd sensation. Meanwhile, Duan Yun executed a ground slide, weaving through the chains, closing in. He was well aware that the unpredictably soft and hard chains were stronger the longer they were. The closer he got, the better his chances. This was exactly what the Murong brothers referred to as cutting into his midsection. At this point, the Manor Master who had just lactated regained his composure, and the chains in his hands began to furiously dance. Instantly, the surrounding fallen leaves whirled, the fog formed vortices, and layers of the ground exploded. Two bloodthirsty assassins who had risked coming over to watch were hit by the strength of the chains. One's head shattered, dying on the spot. The other was rendered half-paralyzed, frantically crawling away with one hand while keeping his eyes on the fight. What level was this cultivation technique? Facing the Manor Master's dense assault, Duan Yun suddenly soared up like an eagle piercing the clouds. In fact, facing such a fearsome assault, it's highly inadvisable to take to the air suddenly, because humans are not birds, and in the air, one cannot maneuver as freely as on the ground. But Duan Yun did exactly that. His shoes had already burst, now barefoot. While soaring, his 10 toes did not stop emitting toe strength and toe swords. Chapter 318. Using the force of this counterattack, his movement technique became swift and tricky, even giving the illusion that he could shoot into the sky while fighting. At this moment, the Manor Master of Netherworld Mountain Villa also leaped up. As his hands interlocked, two mysterious iron chains descended like a net, intending to capture Duan Yun. However, Duan Yun's eyes shone brightly as he wielded his sword and shouted, "Sword Blade Storm." A small storm formed by the swirling of sword light and blade light collided with the mysterious iron chains. At the same time, Little Yu of Netherworld Jade Sword Immortal also appeared, spinning and dancing along. A terrifying booming sound filled the air, the result of the mysterious iron chains colliding at high frequency with the gold sword and gentle knife. The air around them twisted and deformed, turning into a gray-white turbulent flow, moving away. This sword blade storm had changed significantly from when Duan Yun used it previously. Thanks to his extraordinary wisdom in comprehending during battle, this technique had evolved sharply. It can be said to be a weakened version of Love Unlimited. Not as powerful as Love Unlimited, but more flexible. With a loud bang, Sword Blade Storm smashed onto the ground, creating a crater and raising dust and debris. In the next instant, Duan Yun's figure flickered, gliding closely along the ground like a fish, darting out of the dust. Damn! What a move! Morong, seeing this, couldn't help but exclaim. This was clearly his ground sliding skill, but now it was displayed by Duan Yun. Actually, there is still some difference between them. At this moment, Duan Yun's sliding was like a fish, whereas Morong's was more like a wriggling maggot. Duan Yun had guessed right. This level of fighting continuously stimulated his abilities, enabling him, a rare cultivation genius, to comprehend even more. Just when Duan Yun had slid for 2 yards, the mysterious iron chains attacked again in a crafty and strange manner. Duan Yun wielded a knife in his left hand and a sword in his right, rotating them like the white crane flashing its wings, as he swiftly moved forward. In the night, a string of brilliant sparks bloomed, and the surrounding air became unbearably hot. At the peak of the clash, Duan Yun's advancing posture looked odd, even somewhat like a twisting Yanko dance, or perhaps more like Morong's but twist. Yet he did not stop advancing. At this moment, the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa also felt the pressure. He understood Duan Yun's intentions, so while furiously swinging the chains, he also retreated backward. But as fast as he retreated, Duan Yun moved even faster. The sound of the chains colliding with the sword became denser in the air, and even from a distance, Morong had to cover his ears, feeling his teeth ache. Fish in the river were shocked into internal injuries, initially jumping out of the water and later floating belly up, and in the night they looked like scattered pieces of silver. Indeed, at this time, the hovering mist around them seemed to fear the presence of Duan Yun and the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa, hurriedly moving away, hence making the area become surprisingly clear. The longer the weapon, the stronger it is, the shorter, the more perilous. By now, the clash between Duan Yun's sword and the mysterious iron chains became more intense. The power transmitted through the chains was staggering. His hands wielding the sword and knife were already sore. Previously, Morong had been defeated at this point. The chain could be both soft and hard, with an unpredictable trajectory and capable of launching very dense and powerful attacks, preventing close-quarters combat. But Duan Yun was not Morong. Just as in the martial world, it is believed that Green Blade Demon is subordinate to Duan Yun. What Green Blade Demon couldn't achieve, young hero Duan could. Suddenly, Duan Yun soared into the sky again. This time, the circumstances were more perilous than before, but Duan Yun was already prepared. He flipped backwards, his sword and knife interlocked once more, spinning around. Sword Blade Storm. The evolved Sword Blade Storm was even more agile, ready at a moment's call. 1 yard, 2 yards, 1 inch, 2 inches. At this time, only 1 yard separated Duan Yun and the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa. 1 yard for a usual martial artist is not too close. If the opponent could dodge, even throwing an axe might not hit the target's vital spot. But for experts like Duan Yun and the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa, it was very close. The engagement had reached its most intense and crucial moment. From this view, the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa really had 4 arms. The 2 corpse king arms were in front of his armpits, connected to his hands. Now, not only the corpse king's arms with blood coursing like fire swinging, but his hands also joined the battle, the left hand picking up a silvery horsetail whisk to strike, the right hand sending out silver bowl shrapnel. The sparks from their weapons colliding were intensely dense, igniting Duan Yun's clothes and hair. Breaking Body Sword Energy. Activate. The next instant, Duan Yun's clothes turned to tatters. That was Breaking Body Sword Energy emerging from his body at an extreme density. So much so that his entire form changed. If the previously deployed Breaking Body Sword Energy was like sword mist, now the density of this sword mist had reached its limit. Thus, Duan Yun could be said to have turned into a sword man. Even sword energy threads were emerging from his eyes. Extraordinary wisdom burst forth for me. In Duan Yun's mind, a flash of extraordinary wisdom spurred him forward, the dense sword mist suddenly gathering in one direction, forming the shape of a sword. From this view, it seemed like a terrifyingly long sword had suddenly sprouted from his groin. with a resonant bang, as if many barrels of gunpowder were ignited simultaneously and contained within a huge golden gong. The sound was immensely muffled. The breaking body black sword formed from the condensed sword energy struck out unexpectedly, crafty and bizarre in the extreme, leaving the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa with no choice but to frantically block with the silver bowl. Chapter 319. Although the black sword was blocked for a moment, the silver bowl was also sent flying, leaving a gash on his shoulder, blood splattering everywhere. As the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa was about to manipulate a mysterious iron chain for defense, at that moment, the breaking body sword energy around Duan Yun suddenly transformed and pierced out from his chest, sinister and fierce. Indeed, this was the result of extraordinary wisdom taking another turn. During the battle, Duan Yun quickly reviewed his fight with the sect leader of the Thunder God and Mother sect, where the ugly woman sect master had an incredibly robust body and could attack at any moment with an iron flute from anywhere on her body, turning her body into the strongest weapon. If that ugly woman could wield the iron flute to stab wildly, he could do it too. When the breaking body sword energy formed a dense sword mist, his Biming Divine skill was also activated. Once the Biming Divine skill activated, his body could produce a strange suction force, like a black hole, absorbing and spitting out others' true chi, and could also rapidly draw in and spit out the breaking body sword energy naturally emitted from his body, condensing it into multiple swords. If it wasn't for the fear that his eyes couldn't handle such a strong suction force, he might literally be able to kill someone with a glare. If it's said that Netherworld Mountain Villa has 4 hands with dense attacks, then at this moment Duan Yun, who is manipulating breaking body sword energy freely, is like a sword man seemingly covered in swords, able to stab out black swords from any part of the body. Facing the increasingly treacherous and swift black swords, the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa, who initially held the offensive advantage, quickly fell into a disadvantage and switched to defense. But when it came to speed, he had never feared anyone. So while defending against Duan Yun's attacks, he shouted arrogantly, comparing speed, "I've never been afraid of—" Ah! Before he could finish speaking, he let out a miserable scream, because 2 of his right foot toes were pierced through by a black sword that emerged from Duan Yun's knee. Although the soles of his boots were made of silver, the tops were not. As the mysterious iron chain sank down, the black sword was immediately shattered, but instantly formed again on Duan Yun's shoulder, striking out. The manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa hastily waved his horsetail whisk to defend, but it was all in vain. It was just a feint. In such high-intensity combat, Duan Yun's use of the breaking body black sword became increasingly adept, as if it was an extension of his limbs. Ah! A more miserable cry rang out. After a feint with the black sword, it stabbed Duan Yun at a more cunning angle, stabbing into the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa. The intense pain rushed straight to his brain, so much so that the manor master felt almost like his crown chakra was about to burst open. Seeing another transformation of the black sword, the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa endured the severe pain and prepared to defend. But with a squelch, the uncovered skin under his silver mask had turned a bright red. The opponent did not change moves, so the same spot on his groin was hit by the sword again. His body was still trembling, and as Duan Yun's waist moved several times, his groin was continuously hit by several swords. Under the trembling of his masked face, the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa stammered, "I've lost all feeling, and you still stab?" Duan Yun did not pause, continuing to fiercely stab. Witnessing this scene, the Murong brothers felt pain and helplessness for the manor master. Why would you even try to compete with old demon Duan? Ah! Suddenly, the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa let out an angry roar, only to hear a hissing sound, as furious chi force accompanied by a bluish-red blood mist burst out from his battered groin. Duan Yun quickly retreated. Who could have expected this guy to decisively detonate the bird? The eerie changes were still ongoing. At this moment, bluish and red interspersed bristles, like steel needles carrying an ominous aura, sprouted from the battered groin. Blue-haired, red-haired zombie? Without any hesitation, Duan Yun swept his golden sword, unleashing a wave of sword chi. With a snap, to Duan Yun's surprise, after the golden sword hacked a few inches in, it couldn't progress any further. These bluish-red ominous hairs were incredibly tough and bore a strange biting force, restraining his golden sword. He exerted force to pull out his sword. With a swish, several zombie hairs were pulled out, and Duan Yun's body leaned back. At this moment, the manor master of Netherworld Mountain Villa seized the opportunity. Shaking his horsetail whisk, the silken threads of the horsetail whisk spreading like an open maw, attempting to strike at Duan Yun's head. Breaking body black sword burst out from Duan Yun's mouth, colliding with the horsetail whisk. Duan Yun's body was already leaning back, and with this collision, he involuntarily retreated a dozen steps, widening the distance between the two. At this moment, the black iron chain smashed down again. This time, Duan Yun seemed to have anticipated the trajectory of the iron chain, sidestepping so that the chain fell beside him, raising splashes of mud. The force of the black iron chain was enormous and deep, and even though it didn't hit him, the wind it created still painfully scraped Duan Yun's face. With a clang, in that instant, the gentle knife chopped down on the black iron chain. This strike was quick but not heavy, as a heavy blow always requires gathering strength. Even though it was a light strike, it slowed the speed of the black iron chain slightly. At this moment, Duan Yun was standing on the chain, and his whole body dashed along the iron chain towards the Netherworld Mountain Villa Master like a gust of wind. The Netherworld Mountain Villa Master did not anticipate this move and hurriedly tried to swing the iron chain to knock Duan Yun off. But it was already too late. Duan Yun, riding the iron chain like surfing, surged forward and raised his hand to strike with a sword. The previous strike did not gather momentum, but this sword had been gathering strength for a long time. The Huangshan golden sword transformed into a yellow streak, as if it was about to ignite, piercing directly towards the head of the Netherworld Mountain Villa Master. A terrifying sound similar to breaking metal and rocks erupted. The golden sword pierced into the right eye of the Netherworld Mountain Villa Master, but it did not proceed further. At that moment, the Corpse King's arm clamped Duan Yun's sword with its flesh and bones as hard as rock. But Duan Yun did not give his opponent a chance to breathe. His right foot kicked horizontally, hitting right on the sword handle. With a bang, blood blossomed. The Huangshan golden sword pierced deeper, and the silver-faced Taoist fell to his knees. Duan Yun stepped forward, his other hand already raised to block, but it was just a feint by Duan Yun. Duan Yun had already anticipated that his opponent would not let him kick the sword again, so his knife swiftly stabbed out, targeting the opponent's chest. At this life-and-death moment, the silver-faced Taoist reacted extremely quickly. The horsetail whisk swept out to block the gentle knife. With a thunderous boom, unexpectedly, the breaking body black sword drilled out from his elbow, striking the blade and causing the gentle knife's blade to lift sharply and change direction, piercing like lightning into his right eye. The knife and sword met then, bringing a brilliant shower of blood from the right eye of the Netherworld Mountain Villa Master. At this point, the Netherworld Mountain Villa Master felt the threat to his life, attacking to force Duan Yun back while fiercely growing zombie hair from his eye socket, attempting to push out the sword and knife. But while his hairs grew quickly, Duan Yun's breaking body black sword was even faster. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Duan Yun dodged the somewhat disordered attacks from the silver-faced Taoist, and the breaking body black sword burst forth from various parts of his body, launching fierce attacks. The positions from where the breaking body black sword burst out were all over his body, but the target was only one: the handle of the gentle knife. Brilliant sparks kept flashing. If the gentle knife was a spike driven into the enemy's eye, then the breaking body black sword was like a wildly swinging hammer, striking the spike of the gentle knife. In a flick of a finger, the spike penetrated the brain, bringing a piercing and explosive sound. With a loud bang, the silver-faced Taoist's head burst open, like a smashed watermelon. The silver mask fell to the ground, already twisted and deformed like a twisted donut, emitting white smoke. The Netherworld Mountain Villa Master, with only a mouth and half a cheek left on his head, uttered the word "good" and fell down. The Netherworld Mountain Villa Master, who once thought himself unbreakable, fell down. Duan Yun stood there, exhaling forcefully, the body-breaking sword mist around his body retracting inward, returning to his body. At this moment he felt terrifyingly powerful. Given time, he could also train himself into an unbreakable weapon. Chapter 320. Old Demon Duan's new role-playing game. I want to be the Manor Master. Netherworld Mountain Villa's Manor Master was slain. Yet Duan Yun did not cease his busyness, for the extraordinary wisdom in his mind was still shimmering, spawning a new idea. He swiftly stripped the Taoist robe from the other party's body, and after fidgeting with the twisted silver mask for a while, it gradually regained its normal shape. Once he donned the blood-stained Taoist robe and covered his face with the silver mask, then fastened those 2 silver bowls on his chest and put on the silver boots. Duan Yun's entire appearance turned much more mysterious in an instant, already bearing some resemblance to the Netherworld Mountain Villa's Manor Master. Some people, even in death, can still be of some use. Afterwards, he tore off the human skin mask from his face and placed it on the shattered head of the dead Netherworld Mountain Villa's Manor Master, accomplishing a substitution. The Murong brothers walked over, their faces full of surprise as they said, "What is this?" It felt as if a ghost had taken possession. "What do you mean, what is this?" "That's no way to speak to the Manor Master," Duan Yun replied, imitating the Manor Master's tone. The Murong brothers quickly caught on and said, "You want to impersonate the Netherworld Mountain Villa's Manor Master, so what should I impersonate?" Duan Yun looked at him, pondered for a moment and said, "A zombie." The Murong brothers exclaimed in shock, "I'm so handsome and suave, and you want me to play a zombie? Your face is already green and the skin is torn. Truly a natural-born actor," Duan Yun commented. The Murong brothers took the green moon saber and looked at their reflection. Whether his face was turning green, he couldn't be certain, but indeed the human skin mask was torn. Only a few pieces stuck to his face, looking like rotten flesh. From this perspective, his facial skin was fragmented, beset with patches of rot. His once handsome appearance no longer. His face lit with a greenish glow, indeed resembling a zombie. However, he quickly remembered something and said, "This green hue of mine won't last very long." He already knew, if his face turned green, it must be the result of pushing the endless resentment blade to its ultimate limit, even exceeding the body's limits, while fighting the Netherworld Mountain Villa's Manor Master. To maintain it, he would have to remain in the state of endless hatred without termination. Duan Yun assured him, "It won't be needed for too long. I have confidence in you." The Murong brothers nodded and said, "I'll do my best." As they spoke, they recalled the image of old demon Duan treating the female sword immortal on top of their heads, especially the visage of Yu Zhenjin, causing their countenance to turn even greener. Truly, from ancient times, lots of passion leave copious resentment, endless hatred without termination. While their faces turned greener, they asked, "What do you plan to do?" "First, search the corpse," said Duan Yun. Searching the corpse was practically the favorite and delightful task of chivalrous heroes. The very next instant, the two of them had turned the Manor Master's corpse upside down, showing absolutely no respect. In the Murong brothers' hands was now a piece of iron plate, while Duan Yun looked pensive upon the Manor Master's corpse. On the corpse were many differently colored flesh pieces, egg-shaped. That was the flesh of the corpse king. Duan Yun recalled that room deep inside, where the suspended corpse king had many holes gouged out. The flesh from those holes has ended up here. This madman actually fused corpse king's flesh within his own body, which was the reason for his subsequent sprouting of zombie hair. This bizarre fusion reminded Duan Yun of the temple cellar, where the long-haired woman grew together with a centipede. However, obviously, the techniques of this Mountain Villa Manor Master were more ingenious because he was still able to maintain human consciousness. As for the centipede woman, she could no longer be called human. At this moment, the Murong brothers exclaimed in surprise, "Look at this iron plate!" Duan Yun took it and inspected it, also revealing a surprised expression. The iron plate was made of a very special material, a metallic substance with the feel of jade, engraved with intricate patterns. What first caught the eye was a silver face, followed by the hand behind that silver face. It was a hand with 9 fingers, and on the back of the hand was an eye. A thread hung from one of the fingers, entangling the silver face. Prince Yuxiao, Duan Yun mused with confusion. The last time he saw a similar iron plate was on the person of Prince Yuxiao of the Chongling sect. At that time, he had speculated that Prince Yuxiao must belong to a mysterious and terrifying organization, controlled by this hand with 9 fingers. Now it seemed his guess was correct. This manor master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa also belonged to this organization. Whether it was Prince Yuxiao or this manor master of the Netherworld Mountain Villa, they both held high positions within the martial world, yet they had to be controlled by this hand, indicative of the hand's terror. Duan Yun, while reshaping the flattened silver bowl on his chest to be round again, asked, "Is there any 9-fingered personage in the martial world?" The Murong brothers pondered and said, 100 years ago, there was a 9-fingered divine beggar who was the gang leader of the beggar gang back then. But it was his right foot that had 9 toes, not his hand. There are people coming. As Duan Yun spoke, he tucked the iron plate into his chest. The Murong brothers suddenly stiffened, freezing in place. A zombie should look the part. In the dim forest, 3 figures soon appeared. Judging by their movement techniques, all 3 were skilled in Qinggong. On seeing Duan Yun, the trio hesitated for a moment, their faces showing fear. This area was under Impermanence Hall's territory, and typically, assassins had no right to come here without orders. The previous 2, one dead, one injured, couldn't resist the urge to join the commotion. These 3, as wings of the Manor Master, dared to come here boldly. Even without witnessing the bloodshed firsthand, the aftermath of the battle still left them shaking in fear. The corpse on the ground, with its head smashed and covered with a human skin mask, was terrifying. The 2 parties, each on opposite sides of the river, the 3 in black dared not come closer.